Hello and welcome. The 86th running of the Giro d'Italia. I'm Phil Liggett, joined in commentary by Paul Sherwins. We can now sit back and enjoy with World Cycling Productions the 86th running of this event. It's a race of some 3,450 plus kilometres, and it begins down here in Lecce, right on the heel of Italy. We should get some good weather for a few days at least as we make our gentle journey north. 3 weeks it'll take us to get up to Milan, where the race will finish. On the 1st of June, indeed, with a 40 kilometres individual time trial. But I guess at least, Paul, men like the sprinters here signing in should have a good couple of days.
Well, the first few days give them some very good chances to try and get their victories, and rumour has it that this stage has been designed specifically as a road stage so that Mario Cipollini can win it and get the pink jersey and equal the record of Alfredo Binda. That's the theory, but I should think there are a lot of other riders who would like to get by him. But let's not forget his early season a little perturbed as well, Phil, with that little fracas he had in Ghent-Wevelgem not very long ago. He was involved in that very dramatic crash. I wonder if the team are completely consolidated around him. Marco Pantani, well, he's happy to be here, that's for sure.
He's still got legal problems hanging over his head, but let's hope he enjoys his Giro. That's Robbie McEwen also here. He says not for the whole tour, just for preparation for the Tour de France. He hopes to pick up some stage wins. Here's the big man, most popular man in Italy at the moment. He's got to wear the World Championship jersey for the first time in his career. Towards the end of his career, everything going just right. And looking down now at the first stage here, it's 201 kilometres today, 125 miles more or less, and no climbs to upset the rhythm of the boys, and it's a circuit. We stay in Lecce while the riders go out and do a big lap of the hill. And the racing now underway, and it looks as though, in fact, all the lead out here is being done by the Domina Vacanzi team, so it looks as though Mario's got them on cue.
Well, these guys are the best drilled squad in the world when it comes to leading out sprints like that. Look at that, all in a big long line. They're inside the final kilometre right now. Mario Cipollini is in an ideal position there in 4th place. There's a Frances de Jeux rider getting involved there. I'm not quite sure who their top sprinter is. Getting up to his wheel, it looks like somebody from Fassa Bortolo. That's probably Alessandro Petacchi, but Cipollini in an ideal position here.
Well, this is the big lead out. There's been little attacks all day for the 169 riders, but nobody going anywhere. Andris Nodux won the sprint out on the course, but now it looks as though they're all going to come around this one together. And I think that Giovanni Lombardi has hit the front there. He is the #1 lead out man for the world champion, who's got his 2nd place there. Petacchi is on the wheel of, look at the face of Cipollini here. Now this would be a record equal. If he can do it, it'll be his 41st stage win in a Giro d'Italia, and absolutely plenty of time to take the record off Alfredo Binda. Now he opens up for the line here, and it looks as though he's being challenged by Petacchi. Little clash of shoulders, and Petacchi's taken him. Well, I think, Paul, that's the first time Petacchi has ever done that.
Well, he's always had a phobia about Mario Cipollini, but he put that behind him this afternoon, and look at that. It was a real challenge up to the line. Superb lead out by Giovanni Lombardi. Cipollini was in the ideal position, but he couldn't get by this man at all.
Well, is he happy? Alessandro Petacchi, so often the bridesmaid to Mario Cipollini, has spoilt the thunder of the world champion there on the opening day of the Giro d'Italia. And congratulations due all round there by the look of it. Look at this now. This is the Italian frenzy at its best here. Congratulating Alessandro Petacchi. He's got tremendous form. This is his 7th win of the year. And the year, don't forget, has only been on a couple of months. Cipollini, I think he did it all right, and yet it just didn't have the speed at the end.
He even tried to close the gate just a little bit there on Alessandro Petacchi, but the younger man, and I actually saw him earlier in the year win the opening stage of Paris-Nice, and he was very rapid there indeed. Cipollini, perfect lead out from his teammate there, and I think he just got it wrong, and maybe it's age catching up with him, and possibly the weight of trying to equal the record of Alfredo Binda starting to weigh just a little bit heavily on his shoulders, Phil.
Well, Petacchi himself now is almost 30 years of age. Look at this, perfectly laid out. Lombardi did his job well, swung off to the left of our picture. May have swung off just a fraction early, I think.
It's like Graham Brown right in the middle as well in the orange jersey. He's a very good man. Saw him sprinting early on in the year in the Tour de Langkawi, and I think he was pretty raucous in the Tour Down Under in the first month of the season. But look at the face there on Alessandro Petacchi. He wants to beat Mario Cipollini, and he's never been able to really do it in the past, and Cipollini, Phil, will not be happy with that.
No, he won't. He looked like Furlan How did he be content there with third place? Well, he's going to milk this one for sure. Alessandro Patacchi continuing what is for him a great start. He got his first win in the Trophy Louis Puig back in February, and there's confirmation of the result. It was Isaac Galvez Lopez from Kelme in 4th, McEwen 5th, and the other Aussie, Graham Brown, washed out to 6th. So a perfect start then for Alessandro Patacchi. He gets the first Maglia Rosa of this tour, while Cipollini now knows he's got a real fight on his hands. Well, the sprinters might well be in play again today. This second stage going from Coppabini to Matera, 174 kilometres. We come off away from the heel of Italy now. A little bit of undulations, just a third category climb, the Monte Scalioso at 156 kilometres.
Shouldn't be much of a problem. There's a nice sight there of the pink jersey, Alessandro Patacchi, lining up behind him, Robbie McEwen. So obviously McEwen knows which wheel he wants to follow this afternoon. And you can see the riders from Alessandro Patacchi's team on the front, the Seiko riders moving forward as well. And I've not seen anything of Cipollini's boys right now. But right in there fighting is looks very much to me as if we've got one of Cipollini's men trying to sort him out. That in fact is Gabriele Colombo.
Well, Seiko have got obviously an interest here, and long-term candidates. Gilberto Simone's made no secret that he comes here as a favourite, as there's an attack trying to get away, and that's Freddy Gonzalez, I think, who's trying to get away. Well, he's had a good day so far because he was the first over the top of the climb, the third category climb out on the course, which will give him an early lead. No, it's Fortunato Baglioni, in fact, who's gone across to Kelme now. It used to be on the Paneria team. Now, Baglioni, he's not a bad sprinter, but he's an opportunist, really. He's not as a pure sprinter of the mould of Patacchi or Cipollini or McEwen, or indeed his ex-teammate Graham Brown, and the pack are right behind.
There's a bit of confusion at the front end of this field right now. A lot of orange jerseys up there. There's the champion of Finland in there as well. But it's Patacchi's men on the front. Patacchi's bumping and barging a lot there in about 5th or 6th place. A bit further down, I could see Robbie McEwen was also taking a few risks there, barging somebody, and it looked as if he was actually rubbing shoulders with Graham Brown.
Well, the Formaggio Pinzola rider, Baglioni, just about hanging on now, but his days are numbered as they enter the last kilometre now. The sprinters again are going to clash here. Now, can Alessandro Patacchi continue? Yesterday he was so confident. It's not as organised, this sport, because the Domina boys are not well organised at all. I can't see any of them in sight. There's the pink jersey of Patacchi looking for the world champions jersey of Mario Cipollini, and at the moment he's washed away from the scene here. This is going to be a very different type of sprint. It just shows you get your first big win in a stage race. Patacchi's only ever previously won a couple of stages of the Vuelta, and now he's got all the confidence one requires, and he's perfectly lined up for this one yet again. Now Graham Brown once more is in on the action, still looking for the jersey of Mario Cipollini. It's not coming into my vision. Angelo Furlan is off to the left of the picture, and this is going to be a very, very tight sprint again. A perfect lead out perhaps, as now there's a lead out here for Graham Brown as well as they start on the right of the picture, and the lead out man for the pink jersey looking where he is now. He's still in 4th place there, and Cipollini looks as though he's been washed away from this. Now we're going to have to worry about Cipollini's form here. Graham Brown, I don't think is going to make this, because the challenge from Robbie McEwen on the left, he's pushing a bit close there to Baldato. He gets it. McEwen has got it on the line, but I'm a bit worried there, Paul, because the hand went up of Fabio Baldato. Looks like he's objecting.
Well, Fabio Baldato is a pretty experienced professional. He wouldn't do that if he didn't think that was a dangerous move. There's Robbie McEwen right in the middle. It looked to me like he was full on, but he did deviate from his line quite a bit in the last 200 metres. But, you know, sprinting is a dangerous part of the sport. You have to take risks. You have to see the opportunity when it jumps right in your face. And we'll have a look at that again. Let's have a look just from the helicopter here. There you can see on the right-hand side, Robbie McEwen really is going full on. He started the sprint in the middle of the road, and right now it looks to me as if he is closing the gate down on Fabio Baldato. Baldato, I'm not sure whether he could come through there or not, but I tell you what, at this sort of speed, you know, you're looking 40 miles an hour here right now. Fabio Baldato, and let's not forget, this is the Tour of Italy. Fabio Baldato is an Italian. He might just get the decision.
Well, amazingly, the rider behind there in the Domina Vacanzi is Gabriele Colombo. I'm very surprised that he came up for 3rd place. Cipollini completely out of the hunt, as we now look here at the move on the left, as it came clearly from Robbie McEwen, the big winner of last year. Had a wonderful season, ran out with more wins than anybody else. But he just senses there, you know, that he's running out of steam, and he's gently moving across to the right. And as we're watching this, I can tell you that they have disqualified McEwen from the win. He goes to the back of the race, and Baldato is the winner.
You know, that's a strange move there. I'm not sure if Robbie hadn't done that, I'm not really convinced that Baldato would have come through. He seemed to be moving up slowly alongside Robbie McEwen, but that's a question only he and Robbie McEwen will ever be able to answer. So Baldato there, a good man in his past, Phil. He's always been up there in races like the Tour of Flanders, but it doesn't do anything at all to change the overall classification, because it's still Alessandro Petacchi on top.
And Petacchi keeps the lead. Small time bonuses there, but nothing to affect at the moment what has been a dream start after 2 days for Alessandro Petacchi, as he gets the second Maglia Rosa of this tour at least. Just a few seconds in it in the overall classification now, as we move on to stage 3. He leads by 4 seconds over Baldato and 19 over Gabriele Colombo. And the race now continuing here down as far south of Italy from Policoro to Terme Lugiani. Chance now for a couple of climbs. There's the route contour for you. All the hills coming towards the end of the day, 145 kilometres.
Tell you what, this is rather a difficult climb here on the run in towards the finish, and it's going to catch one or two of the sprinters out by surprise, and it might give us our first chance to see a change in the overall classification. But I tell you what, as always, it's been very rapid over the last few kilometres, trying to pick up the pace, and look how long that main field is, Phil. It's really been stretched out, and a little earlier on, Mario Cipollini was looking in a serious spot of bother at the back end of this field. And I wonder if he has got the great form this year. And you know, he's a special bike rider, Mario Cipollini, but look at this. This is a cheeky move. This is Robbie McEwen on the descent.
Well, I would not have expected McEwen to do this. Maybe he's still smarting after yesterday's disqualification from the win. He's going to take a few chances down here, though, because this is a tortuous descent. And watch out, because this is a tight left-hander here. McEwen safely through it, though, and continuing. And
Strange
now
move. It's a strange move by Robbie, because he's actually in with the majority of the guys at the front end of this main field. I do believe that Mario Cipollini has been swept away from the front part of this group, and I tell you one thing, McEwen's lost all chances of winning now.
Yes, Cipollini has indeed been dropped. Last reported to be nearly 3 minutes behind this group, so the world champion not enjoying these opening days, and that record all of a sudden is on hold of Alfredo Binda, who's got 41 stages, and we've still got Cipollini sitting on 40. But I'm very surprised to see that Petacchi's boys are still working hard here.
Well, Petacchi's boys might be, but I think Domino Vacanze have decided they want to look after their young sprinter, Daniele Bernati. He's well up there. We're inside the final kilometre right now, and it's either Bernati they're going to look after, or it's Giovanni Lombardi. There's Petacchi. He's got himself over the hill there, which is rather a surprise to me, because he has a bit of an allergy to these mountain passes, although they weren't that big this afternoon.
Well, we're gazing down through the grove of trees here from the helicopter, and we can see now that this is again going to be a very, very hard-fought sprint. No Mario Cipollini, over 4.5 minutes back as we speak. After 3.5 hours now, the riders are still getting a perfect lead out, ironically, by Domino Vacanze, and Paul might be right. It may be for Bernati today. Stefano Garzelli's down there as well. He's a rider that at this stage of the Giro last year was providing a positive dope test, controversially so, and was to be evicted from the Tour later. But he's in the group down there now. Also, Alessio haven't yet picked out Robbie McEwen again.
Well, there you can see just taking over the pacemaking right now. In fact, it is Lombardi who's on the front. He's definitely looking after Bernati. None of the big sprinters are in here right now. They're in about 4th position. You can see Petacchi. And watch out for a move there. You can see the lime green jerseys of Vinny Calderola. It could be a big surprise for Stefano Garzelli, because he does like a finish like this.
Well, this is a nice little group of riders here, and hats off to Petacchi for surviving over the undulations and still be very much in with a shout, because there he is in 3rd wheel here and getting a lead out from not his teammates, and he could well be saying in a moment, thank you very much indeed. Now the rider in yellow, Vino Calderola, looks to me like Stefano Garzelli, not his style of a finish, but he's got the wheel of Petacchi and he's going for it. Now this would be a real surprise if Garzelli can do this, but it looks like at the end of what has been quite a tough day and brought this group down to a few riders, that is an inspired finish, and what a difference a year makes. Garzelli gets it, And Casagrande, I think, also got the better there of Alessandro Patacchi.
That's an impressive move. Let's not forget, this guy's only been back in competition, Phil, I think for not very much more than a week or 10 days. He won his first race back, and that was a stage of the Tour of Trentino. Got himself up into second place in the overall classification. But from there to winning a stage of the Giro is unbelievable.
Well, it's a good result for Garzelli, that, because he's still a pretty popular rider, and he'll have plenty to say to the press down there, I would think, after that win. And he's done it, don't forget, which will bring him right up the overall classification today. Cipollini way back now, as the race clearly split up on the run in here today to this Spa town.
I'm surprised it
a long time before
split up that much.
comes in.
Yeah, I think Cipollini at the last check was around about 2.5 minutes behind, but this is the final spurt up to the line here, and what a superb move here by Stefano Garzelli. Really was magical. There it was Casagrande on the far side there, and rather strange to see these two guys taking on the sprinters. And Patacchi, well, hats off to him, Phil, because he's not reputed for being an uphill sprinter.
No, I'm quite surprised he even stayed with that sort of a quality group coming into the finish. He must have very good legs right now, Patacchi. He should keep his should keep his Maglia Rosa, his pink jersey here, Paul, because I don't think Garzelli with that win bonus can quite close the gap. I've got him back about 15 seconds or so.
Looking down there, you can see this small stage has done an awful lot. In fact, that was Cipollini coming in. He had the blue jersey on there for the leader in the Intergiro competition. But no taking away the victory from this man, Stefano Garzelli. And a lot of people after that win will start to think that he will be a long-term favourite to try and win this bike race. But I think he'll probably crack in the last week, because after all, you can't have a year out of competition and come back in right at the top like that.
Well, at least that's what some of the big names are going to hope for. There's the overall situation. In fact, Garzelli up to second, 17 seconds. Casagrande, Colombo, Gilberto Simoni. These are big names here. Simoni, a previous winner of the Tour. Also not losing much time on these early stages, which of course is what they try to do with the mountains and the time trials still ahead. Patacchi finishing well and keeps the lead on this race on points as well at the moment.
Well, this man is inspired. I really didn't think he'd get over that climb today. It was a very difficult climb, and made much more difficult by the heavy tempo that these guys were putting on the front end of the peloton. Mario Cipollini certainly didn't like it.
So, as the race moves on, we can now have a look at the action on stage 4. This will take the riders away from Luigiane to Vibo Valentia, 170 kilometres this one, and nothing really to upset the rhythm of the sprinters yet.
Well, it's all down to the last part of the course. Those are not really very big climbs. You can see climbing up to around about 500 meters in altitude. But these coastal climbs really are the sort of climbs that the majority of the sprinters can get themselves over. And tomorrow the riders will be moving across to the island of Sicily. There's Mario Cipollini, 3 kilometers to go, and he's actually trying to battle his way back into the main field right now, and he really is not having a lot of luck here, Phil, in the Giro this year. No, he's had a poor start, and it doesn't look as though he's got bad form. He may have just slowed down a little bit, because he's found a rather superlative sprinter in Alessandro Patacchi. Well, he's got a few of his teammates there, and he's inside of 3 kilometers to go. He's actually trying to get back onto the tail of the main field. He's got 1 or 2 teammates at the front. There is Giovanni Lombardi. He's riding at the front end of the main field, and he should in fact be back with Cipollini, trying to pace Cipollini back into the group. Cipollini for the moment 23 seconds off the tail end of the peloton. Well, again, you see, he's not paying attention, or he's not got the legs. But look at these bunches down here now. Patacchi is still the man to beat in this race, as the riders now start to fan out. McEwen going through there, 1:31. He's also trying to get himself up to the front end of the main field. As we look here, this will be 2 kilometers to go to the finish line. Well, we had a long break all day by Alaio Aggiano and Martin Vastia. They've been caught now. It was a long break. But always to no avail when the sprinters start to lick their lips, as the lead out starts now. And this is a good lead out here too. Looks like Matteo Brusagin, who's got the honour of being the one on the team this year for Fassa Bortolo. And there is Cipollini. Well, he's getting close, but he's not going to close it down quite fast enough for the moment. He's looking around for help. Little climb, didn't he? And he just can't close it. You know, he hasn't got the form, Phil. He just doesn't have it this year. I think maybe it's going to be the curse of the rainbow jersey once again. And it seemed so good for Mario Cipollini at the start of the season, with some brilliant wins under his belt. And he actually looked to me as if he was going to do a good ride in Ghent-Wevelgem. But right now, he's trying to pull himself back into the peloton. but this is pretty rapid on the front end of the main field. This is Alexis Rodriguez from Kelme, and this is rather surprising to see the Kelme boys doing such a big lead out like this. Pataki's in there, he's in there with the pink jersey in about 7th or 8th position, and then next, well, there it is, 1,000 metres to go, the last kilometre.
Well, and the lead out is still there now for Alessandro Pataki, and this could be another win for this man who's starting to set this race alive. He's been defending that lead, scant as it might be, for the Maglia Rosa as well, as the lead out begins now. But there's a good mixture of riders here at the front, as well as they're trying to find their way through this gap now. And the lead out has suddenly changed across now. It is no longer the team of Fassa Bortolo looking for the win here.
Well, Lombardi's right up there in about 3rd position. He looks ideally in position to try and take up this sprint. Fabio Baldato's over there as well, but Pataki's too.
And that's we need a front shot now to see who's getting through there now, because McEwen is sitting back there in 3rd wheel. Gaspari is also there and also making a run. I think it's Bernard Eisel who's also trying there for Francaise de Jeux. Very unusual this. Pataki's got the front though, and he's being challenged by McEwen, and he's got it. McEwen has gone over the top of Pataki. There are very few riders can do that. I think it was McEwen. If it was, it's his 6th win of the season.
Well, that was a pretty rapid. Well, there it is from the side. You can see it's not very much, but it's enough to give Robbie McEwen closest to us there the victory by not much more than a quarter of a bicycle wheel.
Well, you don't get much closer than that, but pure sprinters will see that as a mile. And Robbie McEwen there getting his 1st win of the Giro d'Italia. And that win, by the way, should probably give him the lead of this race in the points department as well. We can see that again now. I'm very surprised that McEwen found the extra speed here, because when Pataki's been winning races this year, like Cipollini in the past, once he's got to the front, he usually holds it. But this time, McEwen just throws his bike.
I tell you what, he was using a monster gear there as well, and that's something he certainly wanted to do. A bit of sweet revenge from just a couple of days ago when he was disqualified for putting Fabio Baldato into the barriers. Robbie McEwen will be happy with that win on stage number 4. It'll be a different ball game tomorrow as the riders go across to the island of Sicily, because there's quite a big climb in the middle of that stage.
Now there's the overall very briefly for you. 29 seconds. Garzelli, no change there, no change at all in the top 3 places. Casagrande hanging on, and Pataki still the only leader of this race as we now move on towards Cantaria, which is stage number 5. This one's 169 kilometers now as we continue on. And they're staying in what is ideal racing conditions just at the moment for the riders. 2nd category climb on this route takes up to 1,125 metres. It's about 3,700 feet.
Well, this is a stage that Mario Cipollini felt that he could win, Phil, but I do think that that little pimple in the middle there is going to be just a bit too hard for Mario Cipollini, because he doesn't seem to have the climbing legs right now.
No, and as we catch up with the action here now, that little pimple was won by Freddy Gonzalez early on from Luis Laverde and Rinaldo Lotentini. They covered 60 kilometers today in the first 2 hours, so very sedate start for the riders. But now, of course, we're coming down towards the finish as the riders now looking for the next big sprint as they're moving on down the way now. Let's have a look at the line out again. Now there's Cipollini, Paul, and he's 5 or 6 man down. Now has he got it right today?
Well, he said he wanted to win this one. I can't believe he was able to get over that climb here this afternoon. He's got the team up there in front of him, and in fact, again, it looks like Bagliani's decided to try and outfox everybody there, jumping through the inside. This man has caused a bit of confusion, but not to the super lead-out team of Domina Vacanze. The team that Mario Cipollini has built around him over the last few years. Cipollini's in an ideal position there, queuing up into 4th place as they go around that corner. Very tricky move there. Somebody's gone off, and that was somebody went down very rapidly there. That was one of the CCC Polsat riders. I think he was taking a few too many risks, but the front runners have gone through nice and clean. Graham Brown is up there as well.
It could well have been actually also Brent Lancaster down, and it might have been Nasdaq's, but that was a nasty prang there, but out of the race, just on the last kilometre to go. Cipollini now, remember, a win today will equal Alfredo Binder, but he's got the wheel of Pataki.
Well, this is the wrong way round. Cipollini should be on his own teammate here right now, but his guys, they know exactly what to do. They'll put Pataki into difficulty. We've seen him do that so many times before. What they have to do, if they want to make Pataki lead out from a long way, is pull off early, and then we still have Mario Cipollini in an ideal position to take up the pace. This is Giovanni Lombardi in 1st place, Pataki 2nd, Cipollini 3rd.
Lombardi, quite frankly, is leading out at the worst possible man for this, because Pataki has got the wheel of Lombardi. He's going to thank him for this is Cipollini gambling. He is a much faster finisher than Pataki, because now it's going to go mano a mano. That's Bernard Eisel in third place, but on the jump he lost the length, and Pataki is opened up. Now here comes Cipollini giving his best shot. Cipollini hasn't got it on the line. He's lost again, and this time Pataki is going to increase his overall lead as well. He gets a 20-second win bonus for that. He won't believe the way he's starting this year's Giro d'Italia. He's been the only leader so far, 5 days into the race.
This is a man, Phil, until this year had a complex about Mario Cipollini. He did not believe he had the ability to beat Super Mario, and now he's done it. There he did it fair and square. He led Cipollini out. Look at this, hugging the barriers nice and tight there on the right-hand side. Cipollini gets a perfect lead out from one of the fastest men in the world right now, Alessandro Pataki. Cipollini comes up alongside, and you know, it looks to me as if this is the moment Cipollini's about to pass, and there's a slight movement in his pedaling action there, just about 50 meters to go. I think he might have hit something in the road, and then in the lunge for the line it was not very much at all.
Well, we'll have a look if we get a head-on shot, but they could have hit a hole in the road, but there's no doubt who won. Pataki over Cipollini, Eisel, Moreni, McEwen, Brown, Zverada, all the big sprinters right behind, but really not in the hunt at all. Just watch for that as he comes up in his front shot then, because Cipollini looked to have the speed here. He certainly made the right move coming off his wheel early enough, and I really thought he was going to take this.
Well, he was moving up all of the time. These men were both going at it in 53 pocket on the outside and 11 on the inside, and it looked as if there was a moment there when Cipollini hit something and lost a bit of momentum, but there was no problems and no mistakes for Alessandro Pataki, who's this year turning out to be the dominator of Mario Cipollini.
And he still leads the race, increased now with that win bonus of 20 seconds over Stefano Garzelli. 49 seconds the advantage. Casagrande stays there in third. Pelazzotti comes up into fourth place. He's leading in just about all of the competitions at the moment. He's got his points jersey back as well off Robbie McEwen. And so he's just got head of the leaderboard in the points and in the race lead, and he's won the stage. He's really doing just about everything right. The King of the Mountains at the moment still being led by Freddy Gonzalez. Onwards we go now, a chance to look at stage number 6 from Maddaloni to Avezzano. One of the longest stages here at 222 kilometres. And this is going to be a race of undulating countryside, quite pretty countryside now as we start to begin our journey a little bit north.
Well, a bit more difficult as well as they start to head into the middle of the peninsula, because these roads will be heavy. There's 1 or 2 climbs on the course, but once you start to get away from the coast, Italy is a very difficult cycling country.
Cipollini still in the mix today. There hasn't been any attack of note. There was a long breakaway of 3. Christian Moreni, Zabaya of the Kelme team, and Magnus Bagstedt of the Factor team, who's also sprinting very well at the moment, but they've been swept up. And now it looks like Mario Sidia, who is the lead-out man. There's Eisel. Eisel is sprinting very, very well for FDJ, Française du Jeu at the moment, but there's an awful lot of the zebras around.
There are. You can see Mario Cipollini's up there, and I think in the back of his mind right now, Phil, he must be starting to get a bit worried about his form, because he's been beaten to the line quite sensibly a couple of times by Alessandro Pataki. And Pataki this time is taking up the wheel of Cipollini. There's Cipollini. Big bike rider he is, but once he gets a crack at the line, he really knows how to open up the gas. Right in front of him is the final lead-out man for him, Giovanni Lombardi. They seem to put all their problems behind. Cipollini complaining a couple of days ago that Giovanni didn't wait for him when Cipollini was only 20 seconds off the back end of the main field. There's the pink jersey, though. There's no problems about him.
Pink jersey, once you've got the lead in your winning stages, you don't need any more confidence than that. Just trying to tag on to the back wheel of the pink jersey is the other good sprinter on Kelme, Isaac Galvez Lopez. He's been sprinting very well, just on the second rank, if you like, of the sprinters at the moment. And winging round the corner there, Graham Brown. He's overdue for a win, I think.
Well, Brownie's been pretty close all the time. The amazing thing about Brownie is he can come from a long way back. Look at this, Domino Vacanze. They've got 4 riders still left at the front, and the 4th rider is Mario Cipollini. Moving up onto his wheel was the pink jersey of Alessandro Pataki. A couple of points back there was Graham Brown. Brownie will be looking to try and get himself up there. He's actually lost a bit. There's Brown in 5th. Last kilometre now.
Ongarato, Benati, the first two riders under the banner, and it looks as though Cipollini has got it organised now. They've got so far away here, there'll be a split time on the line as well, and Pataki is out to increase his overall lead. He's hooked up to the back wheel of the world champion, but at last it looks as though Cipollini has organised right the Dominia Vacanzi team, because he's got them all going at the front.
Yeah, there's some big names missing though. There was a Seiko rider just sat up there. He's looking for Gilberto Simoni. He's going to lose himself a bit of time here this afternoon. There's Jans Verada as well, the rider in there for Lampre.
Well, the speed has split the race here, and I don't think there was a crash down the back, but it looks to me as though this group has got itself clear.
Oh my God, Zelli's on the back there. I can't believe that. This man may be moving up high in the overall classification with a move like this, because soon we'll get into the big hills, and that's a good move for him over the rest of the challenge. But this is Lombardi on the front, Cipollini in an ideal position.
And that's Isaac Galvez on the left, who's taking on Pataki. Cipollini sat up. Cipollini has sat up. Pataki is going to get win number 3. Easy as you like. Well, I can't believe that. I don't quite know why Cipollini sat up, unless he felt he was beaten just before the line. But you see, the main field here gets a separate time, 3 or 4 seconds.
You know, I actually think his teammates might have asphyxiated him. They pushed him so hard. They did a perfect lead out. They gave it full on for the last 3 kilometres, and it may well be that Cipollini, when he came to the moment, he got out of the saddle to start the sprint. There was nothing there. You can do nothing to stop this man here, though, right now. Alessandro Pataki, for an Italian in the Giro d'Italia, Phil, this is a dream come true. This doesn't happen. This is magic.
Well, and the man who also saluting there was Marco Vello, who really saw all of the hard work pay again. Huge dividends here. 3 stage wins now, and this race only on stage number 6. Half of them are going the way of Alessandro Pataki. Will increase his lead both on points and on the race time overall. There's the result. Galvez getting 2nd place. Jans Verada, his best finish so far. Vello punching the air. He came over in 4th place. Just look at the speed of Pataki. Galvez went with him. That was a good move, but he had no chance of actually beating him.
Perfect lead out here, though. Look at this. Giovanni Lombardi on the front there, and as soon as Cipollini looks across, he can probably feel Alessandro Pataki's acceleration. But if you look at the face there on Mario Cipollini, he gets out of the saddle and sits back down again straight away. I don't think he had it this afternoon, and I wonder if he's actually going to equal that record of Alfredo Binda right now. It seemed obvious at the start of the Giro that he was going to walk away with the record if he showed the dominance of last season, but maybe the curse of the rainbow jersey is going to stop him from doing that.
Well, you've got to see there that he could not lift himself any quicker. Pataki, very, very quick indeed. And this was one of his easier wins, in all honesty, and it was the Dominia Vacanzi team that led him out. He's now increased his lead to 1 minute and 9 seconds, had 2 win bonuses in 2 days. That's 40 seconds in themselves. Casagrande 3rd, Pelazzotti, no change there. Simoni up in 5th place. But the Maglia Rosa is beginning to look nice. Not that he's anticipating winning the Tour of Italy, but he's going to keep that lead as long as possible.
But I think what's interesting is that split towards the end. Stefano Garzelli was very attentive.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Anyway, the riders now can enjoy the next stage, which will take us on to the 7th day of racing, as we look out across some of the higher climbs now as we head up the Terminillo, and this 146 kilometres.
Well, it's the first taste these riders will have had of the big mountains this year in the Giro, and it's certainly going to be a very difficult stage. All of these riders know the Terminillo. It's a very difficult climb, moving away from Avezzano. It undulates in the first part of the course, and then once they get up around Rieti, then it's the big climb up towards the finishing line.
Well, as expected, we're not going to see much of Alessandro Pataki now, a week in the lead, and this is certainly one stage he is not going to win. As we look down on a very select little group here as the climb starts, Francesco Casagrande is there, sitting off to the left. This could now be the first big selection of this year's Giro.
Marco Pantani in a bit of difficulty, but I'm surprised to see how well he's actually surviving for the moment. His team have been all around him, as always, dedicated to just one thing, keeping Marco Pantani at the front end of the main field. He's a very popular bike rider, despite the ups and downs in his career. They certainly love him at the side of the road here in Italy. But this is the man who I think has probably got the best chance of winning the Giro d'Italia this year, Francesco Casagrande. He's got his teammate up there alongside him. In fact, he's been put into difficulty here right now. He's supposed to be the team leader, and in fact, he's scrambling back up to the front.
The Seiko rider he's riding with there, Leonardo Bertagnoli, also sitting just behind, as this little group is under a little bit of pressure. is also riding there with him is Vladimir Belli. And he is a good climber. He has his moments, Vladimir Belli. Here comes Marco Pantani. Sitting just behind Marco Pantani is the Kelme rider. That's Carlos Garcia. Pantani desperate to try and prove that he hasn't lost those magic legs that used to take him over the mountains. But Garzelli is coming through best just now. Got Simone just behind him here.
And Eddie Mazzolini just in front of him. On the far side in the Alessio jersey is Andrea Noe, and that looks like Raimundus Rumsas. Now he's supposed to be looking after Casagrande. Casagrande will not be happy with that at all. And there too is Tonkov, the leader of this very new CC Polsat team.
Tonkov, who's had a love affair with the Giro d'Italia for many years. He's had places, he's had the win, he's had seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths. It is an incredible career record in the Giro d'Italia for Pavel Tonkov, and he's going again today.
Just on the back of that group as well, Oscar Pelizzotti. But look at this, and we're also, for the first time in the Giro, experiencing the hats-off rule as well. This is the first time that we've been subjected to this rule. A new rule in international cycling is you have to wear helmets on all occasions, except on a mountain-top finish where the climb exceeds 5 kilometers or 3 miles. And most of these riders were pretty happy, Phil, with the temperature here this afternoon, to get rid of those hats pretty rapidly at the bottom.
Well, these are hot days, and this now is the first real big challenge of this year's Giro, and one or two riders are beginning to look as though they're lacking just a little bit. Marco Pantani dangling just off the back of the senior part of the race at 10 kilometers to go, all the way to the top now. That's Pelizzotti, who's tagged onto the back. He was once the young rider of the year in Italy.
Jaroslav Popovic has got in there as well, the rider from Lambau Credit. Quite a surprise rider last year in the Giro d'Italia. He rode very high in the overall classification, and he's joined this very select group of men right now. A little further back, there's our friend, the great Mexican climber from Panaria. He's moving up towards the front end of this group. And Julio Perez, well, he seems also to have been put under pressure right now as well, Phil. That's a surprise. Maybe because it's the first big mountain of the Giro, a lot of these riders struggling to find their first rhythms.
Well, it does happen, and after a week of fast racing, we've had just the one rest day. The riders are now finding that this is the part where you can gain huge chunks of time. Pataki, by the way, is well out of the hunt.
And was that Scott Sunderland in that group as well? That I saw one of the factor riders just sitting on the back of the group, and I think it might be the Australian Scott Sunderland who's managed to get himself right to the front end of this bike race here.
Scott's had an up and down career, and he's now hopefully on his way back yet again. But a lot of work here being done here. Garzelli, for me, is looking the danger. That's Eddie Mazzolini, who's doing the pacemaking. Cerrone is in this group just up here, and that is Andrea Noe. Another man, Noe, who turns out ride after ride, but only in the Giro d'Italia.
He's a brilliant bike rider, but he's one of those riders too who you actually never really see, but he's always there and ends up getting himself high finishes in the overall classification. It is Scott Sunderland, and in fact he's not far away from Marco Pantani, and I bet Scotty Sunderland never would have thought that he'd be riding the mountains with Il Pirata himself. Trying to move across there, that looked like Francesco Casagrande is not enjoying this climb at all. But Scott Sunderland, Phil, as you said, he's had a very up and down career, had some nasty accidents. He really is riding superbly here right now. And Team Factor, one of the teams looking to possibly get themselves a wildcard selection for the Tour de France.
Well, Scott Sunderland's going to take a lot of strength from the fact he's riding alongside Marco Pantani here. Still Mazzolini pacing Garzelli. Garzelli and Simone are the big scorers here today. Tankov should be included in that comment as well, I think. Likely riders to win this race. They've all won the Tour before. They're all in this leading group at the moment. The dark horse is Raimundus Rumsas. We didn't expect to see him here, but here he is. And also the younger Jaroslav Popovic is down there as well for the Lambau Credit team.
Well, this is a great job of work on the front there being done by Eddie Mazzolini. And looking at this group right now, because of that move yesterday with a big split towards the end, it could well put Stefano Garzelli in a position to take the overall lead. But I would think there will be a challenge come from Gilberto Simone, because this is his kind of climb.
Well, we've lost Casagrande, and so the next candidate now is undoubtedly Stefano Garzelli, to put him back into the pink where he was last year, remember, when he was in disgrace in the Giro and kicked off it in the end, controversially so. But he's back again now. This is further down the road. Belli on the right. Leading this group is Marco Pantani, and Scott Sunderland tucked in there as well.
On the back there, Marco Velo as well, a former teammate of Marco Pantani, now riding for the big Fassa Bortolo squad. Pantani losing not very much more than about 25 seconds for the moment. There is Francesco Casagrande. He's in difficulty. He's also there, I think, in contact with Pavel Tonkov. But Marco Pantani, Phil, actually seems to be riding himself back into this group as we go inside of 9 kilometers to go to the summit. 9 kilometers, that's still about 25 minutes of racing.
Yeah, that's right. And he's got a strange pedalling style, Pantani. If you catch his left the way he ankles on the bike, he's in the next group, of course, so back up with the leaders here. This is a rather select group now. Pavel Tonkov, Eddie Mazzolini, Andrea Noah, Simone Garzelli, Sabaliauskas, he's the big tall guy from Seiko, and Rumzas, Pelazzotti, Popovic. Look at the face there of Marco Pantani. Boy, that's hurting, but he's still going. You can see his pedalling action now, a very pointed toes, a little bit like Jacques Anquetil in the years gone by.
Tell you what, nobody could say Marco Pantani wasn't trying there. What a great job of work, though, by Eddie Mazzolini. This is Julio Perez, a great Mexican climber, was superb last year, but this year he hasn't got it just yet. But let's not forget there's a lot more mountains to come in the Giro d'Italia. Just round the corner there is the group they are all trying to get into contact with. Popovic here, Phil, at the back. He was 12th overall in the Giro last year and a former world road race champion in the under-23 level of the sport. He's a great revelation, and he's a certain credit to this team anyway. Landbau credit, one of the small teams on the block. But to have a man in a leading group like this when you've got a small team is really good for the morale of the troop.
He's still only 23. He's got everything to race for in the years ahead here. Pataki, by the way, this is Aitor Gonzalez, who won the Tour of Spain on a different team. He was for Kelme last year. I think he's going to be a little bit disappointed by the situation at the moment, because whereas we've had Pataki in the pink all week, when the pink jersey moved on, I think Fassa Bortolo thought it might move towards Aitor Gonzalez. Not so. He looks as though he's really in quite a bit of difficulty here on the first major ascent of this year's Giro d'Italia. Pantani is riding himself. I don't think it was through a bad patch. I think he was just a little bit slow to get himself into a climbing rhythm. But he is now riding very well indeed.
Just a little bit difficult as you get older in years to be able to respond to the accelerations, the changing in rhythm on these climbs like this. There is the man who is looking to try and do something later on in this climb there, Simone, in third position, sitting right on the wheel of Stefano Garzelli. Garzelli on the comeback trail, 12 months out of competition, a little further back, around about 25 seconds to Marco Pantani. In that group there with Vladimir Belli, as we swing up with the magic of television to see the group in between. That's the group of Francesco Casagrande. There he is. He's doing all of the pacemaking on the front. And I bet he won't be very happy, Phil, about the fact that Raimundus Rumsas is in the group in front, because before the start of the Giro d'Italia, Francesco Casagrande was regarded as the #1 leader for Team Lampre. And the way it works in Italian teams is if you're the leader, everybody else has to help you and wait for you.
That's Tochnik down there, by the way, on the back wheel of Perez, who just seems to be closing the gap now. Julio, he was disappointed to be on the defensive on this climb, because he was actually planning a high finish in the Giro this year, and as a result of that was saying he wasn't going to contest the King of the Mountains competition. He wanted more of an overall result, yet he's been split on this climb as well. One or two riders getting caught out today. Let's have another little look here at Marco Pantani as he continues on the climb. Not too sure why our producers are showing us the slow motion here, other than to see the great man in action as we leave him behind now. Looking back up with the leaders here now, and Garzelli, the second man here. He only had a couple of weeks to prepare for this. His suspension only ended last month, and he really has had to work. But he says, even though he hasn't been racing, he's been simulating racing throughout the training he's been doing, and treating each of his training rides as if he was in a road race.
It really is quite remarkable what he's done, because he's actually taken his diary from previous years and tried to ride exactly the same number of miles at exactly the same intensity on every individual day. And that takes an unbelievable amount of mind bending to be able to do that. Aitor Gonzalez, regarded as a pre-race favourite, winner of the Vuelta a España last year, was brought onto this team to lead them in the 3-week Grand Tours, but right now he's having a bit of bother there. Trying to get onto the back there, looked like Steve Zampieri. He's a good man when it comes to the big mountains. But this is the leading group right now. Eddie Mazzolini. Eddie Mazzolini's always ridden very well in the Giro d'Italia. And look at this. This is the move now. This looks like Simone wants to blow this race apart, because he said to his teammate in there, come on, let's turn up the screws right now. And he moves up into command.
Well, there's one or two lacking. Rumsas got caught, and so did Pelazzotti with the acceleration. Young Popovic just about hung on to the back of that group. 3, 6, 7 of them now trying to push for the summit. And former winner Gilberto Simoni is the man hurting the most.
Well, he wants this. He loves uphill finishes. He really does excel when it comes to putting the hammer down. Julio Perez, I don't think he's going to catch up here this afternoon. The difference you see, Phil, between being an unmarked rider going out for individual stages then trying to ride high in the overall classification, it puts an awful lot more pressure on a bike rider, not just physically but psychologically. There is Francesco Casagrande a bit further down, and he's really just trying to pull himself back into this bike race, and he will be rather surprised about his form moving forward there. Pavel Tonkov has actually left Francesco Casagrande behind, and a bit further back will we get a chance to see, yes, there he is, Marco Pantani, Scott Sunderland and Aitor Gonzalez.
Well, the pink jersey of Bataki, we said goodbye to him just before the 20-kilometre marker to go today. So he's losing time, and because it's all of this slog uphill, I think he'll lose quite a lot of time. He won't fight to defend or even stay near the top of the leaderboard now, I wouldn't think.
Well, that was a nice sight there, just in that blue jersey, just pacing his teammate there. That was Charlie Wagalis, the English rider. So Charlie's doing a pretty good ride on this climb.
Well, we've got great hopes for Charlie. He's a lanky rider, very thin legs, very tall, but extremely strong, and the mountains he loves.
And the team captain he was looking after there was Sergei Gonchar of the small Dinardi Kolpak team.
Well, that's his leader, isn't it? He's supposed to ride with him as long as he can.
He's supposed to ride with him as long as he can, but at the moment it was actually Charlie who was pacing his leader. Now then, we're looking further up the road now at the leading group, and it's complete control for Team Saeco. This is Gilberto Simoni in second position. He'll use his teammate for as long as possible, and I wouldn't be surprised, Phil, if we don't see an attack coming from Simoni in the last 3 or 4 kilometres there, and a little bit more intensity coming into the pedaling action of Stefano Garzelli. Eddie Mazzolini, well, he's just hanging on. He's done a lot of work for the team, and Rumsas has pulled himself back into this group with the Marco Pantani group right now. We're being told 1 minute and 13 seconds in arrears.
Freddy Gonzalez still in the lead in the King of the Mountains, but he's not in our picture at the moment. He got a 3rd place over the second category climb of the day, and that might be enough to keep him in the Green Point Mountains leaders jersey, but he's not in this group at all right now, as we're looking at the work being done here now. And there's the acceleration by Simoni. It's the second time he's tried that, but look at the rapid response coming from Garzelli. He really is paying attention just now.
Yeah, look at that. Tonkov has come back into the group as well, so I'm not sure what happened to Tonkov in the early part of the climb, but I think he was able to just ride at his own rhythm, accelerate slowly and bring himself back into this bike race. But I don't think Simoni expected the reaction there to come from Stefano Garzelli. Right onto their wheel is Andrea Noe. Let's look at this one more time. He wanted this. He loves accelerating on a climb when he can, and out of the saddle he's used his teammate Salviuskis as much as possible, but Stefano Garzelli was right there.
He was almost waiting. He almost sensed that move was coming, maybe because he saw the 1-2 of Saeco on the front. Remember, Saeco having a marvellous tour, a marvellous season rather than a marvellous tour. And they've had a wonderful start to the year. They've placed well in the classics. They've won one of the Flèche Wallonne as well. They've done well, 2nd place in Milan-San Remo. This is a great season for them at the moment. And Pavel Tonkov is just hovering here. Is he going to come back? I think he will. Simoni has hurt everybody else except Garzelli.
Well, Andrea Noe has gone with that final acceleration. Look at that, Stefano Garzelli. Tonkov has gone right now, and so too has Andrea Noe. This is the second kick for Gilberto Simoni. He really is a tough competitor, Phil. He's a tough bike rider. He wants to win this on his own. He won't be too happy right now having somebody sitting on his wheel, especially when that young man's name is Stefano Garzelli, because he knows Garzelli can be a serious threat. I don't think a long-term threat, because having such a long time out of competition, you certainly don't have the reserves when it comes to a 3-week bike race. As we now look at Andrea Noe, look at this, Phil. He's pulling himself back up to the wheel of Tonkov, while further down his teammate Pelazzotti also is riding himself back into this bike race. This man here, by the way, is a very talented bike rider. He's got a problem with his knee right now. You can see that slight bandage on the left-hand knee that he's got. But we now are looking at this race with just 2 leaders. Stefano Garzelli, a former winner of the Tour of Italy, and Gilberto Simoni with the same tag.
Early days, of course. We're coming to complete the first 7 days of racing in the Giro of the 21 stages, 1/3 over. And these 2 riders are certain now, if things stay as it is, to become the top 2 in the overall classification. And it'll be, even if Garzelli can win here, he's got a slight advantage over, or not win, if he doesn't win, he'll still have a lead, I think, over Simoni. He's got just a little bit too much for the time bonuses not to matter. He should be racing now to the pink jersey. We've got no news at all on Pataki, but he's quite a way down this mountain.
Well, Andrea Noe this year in the Giro d'Italia being able to ride for himself very much, because he's had a team that has no real leader. They've got Pietro Cauchioli, they've got Pellizotti, but nobody is head and shoulders above the rest. So maybe Andrea Noe can get his highest ever position in the Giro d'Italia this year. Look at the damage that this climb has done, though, as we rejoin the 2 leaders. Garzelli's just got to sit there as long as he can. He's sure there's going to be another acceleration coming from Gilberto Simoni, and all he has to do is try and respond to all of those. The gradient on this climb is not so bad. It was around about 10% at the early part of the climb, and it actually gets easier as you get closer to the summit. And it's always makes me laugh, Phil, when in a commentary position we can say the climb gets easier towards the top.
Yes, quite. Well, these are the riders who have each won the Tour. Last year's winner, Paolo Savadelli, not here. Switch teams, remember, gone across now to Telecom and looking for him for the Tour de France. But these are the 2 previous winners to that. Savadelli winning last year, but Simoni winning in 2001 and Garzelli in 2000. That really did accelerate him as a top man in Italian cycling.
Briefly there, group number 3 on the road, Rumsas, Popovic working together, but the 2 leaders are really being subjected to the dominance here of Gilberto Simoni. Simoni, by the way, won that Giro del Trentino that Stefano Garzelli won the opening stage of not much more than about 10 days ago. And I tell you what, he would really like to get rid, I think, of the man who is with him in this group. He'd like to get hold of the pink jersey right here, right now, right this afternoon if he can. But he's got to do one thing if he wants to get the pink jersey at the summit of this climb: get rid of that man. While further down the slope, this is Marco Pantani, and he's got a very good teammate with him, by the way. This is a young Polish rider, Sylvester Schmidt, who I actually didn't know anything at all about before the start of this year's Giro d'Italia.
Well, they're quite a way down the climb now. Simoni looks, now he's split the field up. He's doing all of the work. Garzelli just sitting there behind him and knowing that Simoni can tow him all he likes, because he'll be the next recipient of the Maglia Rosa, and then he'll have to defend it.
But the gap is not great over Tonkov there. Do you see the time check was just 6 seconds? So although he had the initial burst, he's actually not doing the job of building on that gap that he started to do just around the corner there. Noe now has left Tonkov, and Tonkov has been left behind there in front of the cars. Noe is going to ride himself back into this race. He's a great rider. He won't give up at all when it comes to the Giro d'Italia.
I think this is the only time of the year we ever commentate on Andrea Noe. He really is an amazing bike rider. He finished 4th in 2000, 6th in 2001 and 20th last year in the Giro d'Italia. And he's right in the frame again, and he's coming back slowly but surely. There's no doubt that Simoni, having split the field up, has not put home the advantage here, whether it's because he can't or whether he's just easing it back to see what Garzelli's going to do about it. Well, only time will tell us that.
When you look at his pedaling action right now, he looks as if he's having a hard time pushing a big gear over on the slopes of this climb, and this gives you a chance to see the return on the right-hand side of Andrea Noe. He's just looking at those 2 cars in front of him. Those will be the team cars of Simoni and Garzelli. He'll set his eyes on those and just hope that he can pull it all back together before the finish. What a finish that would be if he could get himself the stage victory. Tonkov is a strange rider, Phil. Whenever you look at him, he never looks as if he's suffering. He's rock solid on the bike. His pedaling action is always smooth. His face never gives anything at all away.
And he's not even looking at Garzelli, is he? He's not saying, come on, Stefano, give us a hand here. You've got as much to gain as I have. He's just sitting there. Now they're going virtually side by side as they head up towards the summit.
I reckon Garzelli's probably suffering here right now. This is a moment he just wants to come up alongside Gilberto Simoni and say, well, you've given me your best shot and I'm still here, so if you've got anything left, just open up the gas one more time, because I'm not going anywhere, mate. I'm going to stay right here with you. But it's hurting him. Just look at his face here. It really is remarkable, Phil. Whatever you think about what happened last year to Stefano Garzelli in the Giro d'Italia and that positive dope test for a now defunct masking agent called probenecid, he still has come back to the top of the sport after 12 months without competition, and that is pretty remarkable.
That's right. Simoni himself having his own class with the authorities too, with the famous sweets which contained cocaine that a relation brought from South America. In fact, Simone's case was proven and all penalties were absolved. He did win in his appeal, but now they're both here to prove a point. They're side by side, the two previous winners of Giro d'Italia, and they're now trying to sort it out amongst themselves, while Andrea Noe, if our camera swung around, cannot be far behind.
He's right on the tail of the two service cars following these two men right now. This is a very big psychological battle. This is what the front end of the race looks like. But look there on the right-hand side, number 8, Andrea Noe, is pulling himself up to the two leaders who thought they were going to decimate the field on this climb of Terminiglio. I tell you what, though, Garzelli is pulling himself inside out to stay here with Simone, Phil. He's probably breathing out of his left ear so that Simone can't see that he's putting himself into problems.
Andrea Noe, his greatest moment probably in 1998 when he won a stage of the Tour of Italy, and it was stage 11 then, not too far off this one. He also wore the pink jersey briefly, but since then he's had a real good love affair with this race. Now, did you see the stare then from Simone? That
was a stare just to see what was going on in the eyes of Stefano Garzelli. But this man, number 8, Andrea Noe, used to ride for Mapei. His job was to look after men like Pavel Tonkov when they were all together on the Mapei squad. And if he's got anything in his legs right now, he needs to hit them hard, and that will psychologically hurt them.
I don't think he can accelerate. He's come up here and he's latched on. Simone will know he's there soon. Let's see what he does about it. He's going right up onto the shoulder of Gilberto Simone. We now have 3 leaders here as we head towards the summit of the Terminillo, and it's going to be a 3-man sprint for the honour. And I would think that these 3 riders will go 1, 2, 3 in the overall classification, probably in the order Garzelli, Simone, Noe, because that's how it is in the time gains at the moment.
I'll tell you, the remarkable thing to me is the fact that Stefano Garzelli is still there, because that lack of competition is so difficult to replace. And right now we know Simone's had a pretty good start to the season with his win in the Tour of Trentino, but he has also taken part in most of the other preparation races as well. This is the next group on the road. That's Popovic. Eddie Mazzolini's not going to help them at all. And because he's got his team leader, Stefano Garzelli, just up the road, and they'll be looking very shortly at seeing the Flamme Rouge, the kite that indicates there's just 1 kilometre left to go to the summit of this climb. But Noe, Phil, what a great ride, and it would be great for him to try and get the stage victory, but he's going to have a hard time because the 2 men that he's with, when it comes down to accelerating at the top of mountains, they're both pretty good.
I can't see him, even though he's here, getting any better than 3rd. But even so, he's done well to climb up to these 2. Nobody else has been able to achieve that all day. He's 34 years of age now, Andrea Noe. Turned pro a long time ago in 1993. So this will be, what, his 11th season as a pro.
Well, just a few moments ago, it was indicating 2 kilometres to go, but that's the 2 kilometres to go banner just down there. As in fact, it looks as if somebody else is riding himself back into this bike race. This is a good move, and again, this young man a couple of years ago was regarded, and this is the time when Gilberto Simone says, well, that's it, it's finished with the playing, lads, let's get on with the job in hand.
Ouch.
And he's out of the saddle, and he's put Noe back into problems.
Ouch, that really has hurt Noe. He hadn't recovered from the chase. He's opened it again, but you know, it's almost as if Garzelli's got his bike hooked up onto the saddle of Simone, because he hasn't given him a millimetre. He's right up on his back wheel, and that's put a couple of seconds back now into Andrea Noe. And there's a second acceleration from Simone. Surely Noe's not going to come back from this, but he's still ahead of the rest, and he'll hang on for 3rd place. And now looking around to see where he's gone is Garzelli. Garzelli too is on his absolute maximum. That was Tonkov briefly.
He's on the rivets, and there a bit further back was Pellizotti. You see the difference in the pedalling style of these 2 men. You see on the inside there, Gilberto Simone, the climber, is out of the saddle, bouncing all the time, dancing on those pedals to try and keep them ticking over, where on the other point, you look at Stefano Garzelli. He sits a long way back on the saddle, well behind the bottom bracket. That way he can climb on force, as they say in the old cycling jargon. And again, he pulls up alongside Gilberto Simone, man against man here right now. It's 10 seconds back to the Tonkov group and 32 seconds back to the Raimundas Rumsas group. And we're not getting any time checks at all right now on Francesco Casagrande, who, to me, before the start of the Giro, was the #1 favourite to win, because he's got the best form of his life.
I know, I can't believe it. He's had a terrible climb. We saw him fading early on. He was dropping behind Marco Pantani when we last saw him. and it looks as though it may be nerves, who knows, but he certainly hasn't had a good climb.
No, he's coming back. This is great. This is good stuff for Andrea Noe. What a man. He cannot respond to the accelerations of Gilberto Simoni, but once they get the gap, I think they're actually playing a bit of a tactical game here. They're not quite sure just how good the other one is. Gilberto Simoni has attacked 3 or 4 times really hard to get rid of Stefano Garzelli, and every time Garzelli has stayed there up alongside him. Andrea Noe says, well, you guys go and play and I'll come back when you slow down.
Well, he's keeping his rhythm. He's finding his own climbing pace. Climbers do not like other climbers to dictate how they climb. You've got to find your own rhythm and stick with it. And he ignored the accelerations and he's come back. And it is again going to be a 3-man sprint for the line. Absolutely amazing.
Well, this is a tough climb now. These guys, I have to say, I think Simoni's got to go again if he wants to win this stage. There's the Flamme Rouge right now, the red kite. And Simoni out of the saddle, bobbing along, just trying to keep the gears ticking over. And I wonder what's going through Stefano Garzelli's mind. Let's not forget, he's already had himself a stage victory so far in the Giro, Phil. He could be looking at number 2 here right now.
Yes, he won. It wasn't quite the mountain top finish of this one, but it was generally uphill towards the line at Terme Luigiani. That's where Garzelli moved himself into the frame and showed us he was in very serious frame of mind too for this race. And a real challenge. Simoni has come in as the outstanding favourite, but Garzelli now must go alongside him exactly as they climb this mountain together, with some big names now losing quite big time today. We don't know exactly what time because we've had no basic time checks on them yet. But as they climb up towards the line now, is Noe going to pull the surprise and jump around them and take the day?
I don't think so. Look at his head. It's all over the front end of that machine right now. He's just happy to be with these two guys. These two men have had a real ding-dong battle on the final kilometres of this Terminilio climb here right now. And I think we're going to be treated to a drag strip sprint to the line between two climbers.
Well, Garzelli is the sprinter of the group because he can pack quite a sprint finish, this man, as well as being an outstanding climber. He's got Simoni in front. He's now just checking on the whereabouts of Andrea Noe. He's sat in almost this identical position all the way up this climb. Gilberto has done all, and is he going? Noe's looking frisky.
He shouldn't go just yet. There's still 500 metres to go, and 500 metres uphill like this can take you around about 50 seconds. There you can see Stefano Garzelli happily sitting in second position. Noe's had an unbelievable battle to stay in contact with these riders. He's been dropped about 3 times, and every time he's pulled himself back up. I don't think he's got anything left in those legs of his, but if he can surprise him, he'll have a go. Simoni's going to lead it out.
Simoni looking for the bonus. Garzelli gritting his teeth, but as he has done all day there, he's hung on tenaciously, and he's going to take this. He's going to kick and go over the top of Gilberto Simoni. Well, that's a psychological sock in the face for him, because Garzelli gets it. His second victory. Easy, wasn't it, he says. Thanks very much for the lift up the mountain. He's over the line in first place. Simoni and Noe in that order. The clock is now counting down, and these are time gaps now which might be significant.
There should be Tonkov coming in right now. He's going to get himself 4th place. He's lost 14 seconds. That's a pretty good ride by Tonkov, but I think now, Phil, we'll start to see the slightly bigger time gaps. Here's Rumsas with Eddie Mazzolini and Sabilauskis, who did a great job for Gilberto Simoni early on.
I'm surprised such a tall man, the Seiko rider, has stayed so well here, but Mazzolini rather is going to take it, so that's another nice little result for Vina Calderola. Sabilauskis comes over just ahead of Raimundas Rumsas. They're timed at around 38 seconds, I would think. Now this will be Pelazzotti, tailed off just towards the top. He comes through on his own. Now he would be in 8th place. And looking further down, that looks like Popovic there in the distance as well. And here comes Julio Perez. I don't think he'd be too happy with this. He expected to be amongst the big boys, and still sitting behind him there is Georg Tocznik.
Well, this man this year came to the Giro d'Italia with a different view. He was looking to try and ride high in the overall classification, felt that he could get himself a top 3 position. This is not the ideal way to start. He's losing himself almost 1.5 minutes, Phil, on the first mountaintop finish, and that's where he does not want to lose any time at all, because he's not one of the great time trialists of the sport.
No, and this is Casagrande. Well, he's lost an enormous amount of time. I don't quite know what went wrong with him. He's done it before in the Giro d'Italia. He's promised a lot and suddenly had one bad day. I think he's climbing up there with Michele Scarponi of Domina Vacanzi.
And that's Scarponi just looking down to see what sort of gear he's in. That's always a bad sign for a bike rider when you're looking down to check the gears, and all of a sudden you realise, yes, well, it is hurting and I'm not really going very well. But Francesco Casagrande, Phil, has lost an awful amount of time, and I think by the time he gets to the finish, it's going to be pretty close to 2.5 or 3 minutes.
Well, I'm not too sure whether it's too early to say he's out of the hunt for the Maglia Rosa, but he's going to have to perform a lot better than this in the 2 weeks which still lie ahead of us, because he comes in here, he'll certainly lose 2.5. It's a fair way up to the line here for Casagrande, and what would he be sprinting for? 12th place. We've had 11 men in so far, so it'll be 12th today for Francesco Casagrande, subject to Scarponi not coming over the top of him in the sprint for the line.
It's a bit of a shock, really, because this man indicated to me this year that he was one of the top favourites, and I would have put him right upside Gilberto Simoni as the big favourite for the overall win. And right now that has been blown away on the first mountain top climb. But watch out for this man. I can't believe that he's going to stay up there for an awful long time, because 12 months out of the sport, but with that win today, he'll be the pink jersey at the end of the day.
He's got the pink jersey, that's for sure. Marco Pantani coming in, 3:48, just a little bit less. As he crosses the line, Garzelli, a year on, is a very, very happy man indeed now. Only the second man to lead this year's Giro d'Italia. He's got only a 31-second advantage over Simoni, 44 over Noe. All of the riders we have just seen arrive come automatically now to the top of the tree. Top 8 places there. There's the new pink jersey now. And Pataki not in yet, but as I say, he's sprinting and concentrating now, as he will do, on his mauvish points leaders jersey, the jersey Tricolamina. Let's go on. Stage 8 is next as we move on now. Rieti to Arezzo. This beautiful town of Arezzo, 214 kilometres, 1 second category climb out on the course. But it should be a day for the sprinter, I think, Paul.
Well, it should be. We're going right up through the middle. A very undulating course here this afternoon, but 1 or 2 pointed places for the King of the Mountains classification. But in theory, it should be a day for the sprinters as they head down into Arezzo at the end of the 8th stage, which is a stage almost certainly going to bow out to the sprinters. We get close down towards the finishing line right now. It's on the front again, Phil, and Pigeon's just trying to get out of the way of the sprint there. The zebra-clad men of Mario Cipollini charging like a mad herd into town. They've got themselves sorted out for the moment. Doesn't really seem to be the very fast lead out for the moment, and moving up there. There is the guy who fell off the other day from CC Polsat. He, in fact, has earned himself quite a bad reputation with a lot of the other riders in here. Is Andris Naudzus, and they certainly have been pretty vocal in the fact that they feel that he's very dangerous.
They reckon that he's not riding in a straight line. Cipollini is down there at the moment. He's got the boys doing their work well. We've seen it all before in this week's tour, and I'm not sure whether he's got the legs to finish off. Pataki, look at the elbows going in down there at the moment. That's Oof. Robbie McEwen taking one there, and I think that was Isaac Galvez who was involved.
That was pretty nasty. There was a bit of fighting going on there. Robbie McEwen moving up through the outside on the left-hand side. He's looking for Mario Cipollini's wheel. There's Naudzus, and I don't think Cipollini's going to be very happy with that, because he's getting in the way of Cipollini's lead out right now. And if it comes to a bit of fisticuffs and argy-bargy, Cipollini's not going to give anybody the wheel in front of him, because he's got his lead out train. And let's have a look there. Naudzus obviously losing out there, moving down into 7th or 8th position. Right on the front now, though, it is the big Domino Vacanze train trying to lead them all out. And I actually can't spot there the Ciclamina jersey of Alessandro
just
Pataki.
On the bottom. I think he's just on the bottom at the moment, but he's definitely in there as they come around this corner. This is looking more like a Cipollini organised charge to the line, this one, but as we've seen so often, Mario himself has not had the kick at the end to finish it off. He's been close, but he has not yet won. Last year, don't forget, he won 6 stages. There it is, and he's leaned on Naudzus there and pushed him out of the way. That's Pataki, and behind him is Galvez now. It looks like Furlan might be making a run too.
A lot of these riders complaining about Naudzus, and you can see there Alessandro Pataki was not very happy at all, and using any which way that he could to get him off the wheel of the man he wants to follow, Mario Cipollini.
900 metres to go now. The same names have got themselves to the top of the bottle. Backstead is in there as well. I've also seen Magnus Backstead of the Fatka team. There he is, the rider with the blackish jersey on, also sprinting very well, looking for the Giro competition, I think, out on the course. He's on the wheel of Alessandro Petacchi, who's on the wheel of Robbie McEwen, who's on the wheel of Mario Cipollini, and the final lead out is coming. This time the last two riders are going to give Big Mario his chance again. Now Lombardi with a brilliant lead out, but last time they blew up their team leader. Can they now give him the run to the line? Cipollini is alert and looking over his shoulder. McEwen is waiting, and McEwen has a habit of hiding till the last minute. Now Mario goes for the line. Here comes Robbie McEwen and Isaac, but they're not going to stop him. Petacchi is taking him on. Petacchi hasn't got it. He hasn't got it. Paul, that is a win and a record equaling ride for Mario Cipollini, and by my very quick calculations, I think it's the first time the current world champion has won a stage in the Giro for 16 years wearing that jersey.
But Phil, it hurt him. Look at that.
I'm not surprised it hurt him.
It really hurt Mario Cipollini to get that win. Not the super dominant Super Mario that we've seen in years gone by. He had to pull something very special out of the bag there. He's got the kind of sprint that he likes here, straight up the middle of the road. He's got a huge gear in. Robbie McEwen this year using massive gears coming up on the left-hand side. Just off to the right-hand side, you can see Alessandro Petacchi in the middle there. The other sprinters, Jans Verrada, right down, grovelling on the bars to keep himself in the top 10. But that's it. That's what Mario Cipollini has been looking for, dreaming about. He wanted to equal that record, but did he push himself hard?
He did, and the 7 big names that finished behind him were the best sprinters in this year's Giro d'Italia, and they all finished behind him. He got that one perfectly right. He is now equal with Alfredo Binder with 41 wins. An incredible record to get so many stage wins in modern day cycling. 41 victories now, and he needs one more to make it his own.
You think the fans are happy?
They've chosen to welcome home the big man himself. It's his 3rd victory of the year, which isn't a lot when you're the current world champion, but every win feels good. He has won the stage into Arezzo. Garzelli will stay the leader of the Tour. Petacchi will stay the leader of this race on points, and Gonzalez will stay the leader of the King of the Mountains. And you think Mario Cipollini cares about that?
Not one iota. And this man is getting the pink jersey onto his shoulders once again, and it's going to be a big battle with Gilberto Simoni over the next few days when we get into the higher mountains, which are coming up pretty shortly. But the day, Phil, today has to belong to Mario Cipollini, because I was beginning to think he didn't have the legs anymore at 36.
I think just about everybody was thinking the same way as we now move on away from Arezzo. The 9th stage of the race now, going to Montecatini Terme. Exactly a 100-mile stage this, and nothing to upset the rhythm of the sprinters along the route either. So this could be the day for Big Mario, providing Alessandro Petacchi doesn't spoil the fun. There's the route. We start in the hills around Arezzo, we quickly fall away, and now the big question everybody is asking, can the big man do it again?
It looks like F. de Jure have got a big lead out on the front end of the main field there, and I thought that was Sandy Cassar trying to lead his teammate out, and we're inside of 2 kilometers to go. And look at the lead out men falling backwards there right now. Cipollini's got his men up to the front, but they're not as organized as they were the other day. Robbie McEwen's up there into 3rd position. Giovanni Lombardi's in 4th place. There is Mario Cipollini. Now he's not scared at all of bouncing shoulders with anybody in this bike race, but he's certainly the man in the orange jersey there, Phil. He's not earning himself a lot of friends in this bike race.
No, he is not. In fact, he's getting quite a reputation about the way he's rough riding everybody, but there's a slight gap here, and this might spoil the show. Our cameraman there looking for the riders through the trees. I think it's Sandy Cassar who's gone clear. It's certainly a Française de Jure rider trying to escape here and win the day. Just catching his number there briefly. Carlos de Cruz, yes, Carlos de Cruz. He can sprint when he wants to, but this could be the best race of his life if he can hold them off.
Well, this is a young team. They come to races like the Giro d'Italia every year to develop the squad, and they've got a slight advantage over a team, a peloton, which is being led now by the team of Mario Cipollini, Domino Vacanzi. They are a brilliant lead-out team. They're on the front there, nice and organised, and Sorry, Carlos, but it's not going to happen today, because you cannot ride off the front end of a main field when that main field is doing around about 40 miles an hour. There is Alessandro Petacchi. I keep forgetting that he's in the Ciclamina jersey there. He's up alongside Robbie McEwen. Eisel bouncing shoulders there with Nauduz. That man is certainly going to get himself a bad reputation in this sport, and you cannot do that.
Well, we had a huge breakaway today of 16. We saw that wiped out, but Freddie Gonzalez increased his lead on the few mountains out there today. That'll make him very happy, I think. But just right now, we're looking here at the whole field charging into town. And they're coming into town here now. Oh, that's Nasdaq's gone down. He went down on the corner. The field are falling off in sympathy here as they try to get round him.
Simone's down there as well.
He's in the last kilometre, though.
Oh, that's okay for him. But this is now Giovanni Lombardi on the front, leading out the sprint there with Mario Cipollini in second place. But right on his wheel is Robbie McEwen.
Now McEwen, if Cipollini gets it, he's the outstanding record holder. But here comes McEwen to spoil a party. He never got it. He never got it. Mario Cipollini has turned this race around in 2 days of sprinting. He now has the outright record. Unbelievable.
He needed the win. He needed to get the win under his belt to get the confidence back. Let's just have a look at this one more time coming into that final corner. They really were going full bore. In second place there, Giovanni Lombardi. But this is where the accident happened. It was Nauduz. He overcooked it. He dropped the front wheel. And that man, somebody's going to have a few words with him in the next few days, because bike riders at the top end of the sport like this, and there's the pink jersey as well, Garzelli and Simone, both involved there, Angelo Pelizzotti, all the big men were at the front end of the main field, but they're in the final kilometre, so they will get the same time at the end of the day as the winner of the stage, Mario Cipollini.
Yeah. Nasdaq's there coming through too tight, lost his front wheel, slipped away from him. You can probably see it from the sky here. What's the man in orange? Doesn't touch anybody, comes in very tight, and his back wheel scoops out those two riders, and they didn't fall off. That was quite amazing. But he delayed the big men in the Giro of the first week, but they'll get the same time of the rule, same time if you crash in the last kilometre. But the rider who we are now watching race to a little piece of history, his 42nd stage win in a Giro d'Italia since he started winning stages here back in 1989. Mario Cipollini has done it on the day he was riding as a world champion.
Absolutely superb. And you know what, that's a kind of record, Phil, that I don't think in the modern era of sport we will ever see get beaten again. Mario Cipollini just wanted to get that record. Even when he equaled it, he was happy. He knew he'd come up alongside one of the greatest men in Italian cycling, but to go one ahead of that really makes him the number one. There's Alessandro Petacchi. We almost forgot about him, coming across the line in third, and Jans Verada held on for fourth.
Verada's actually sprinting very well. He's just not piercing the top 3 places. And there he is, fourth this time. Petacchi will keep his lead on points. Cipollini picking up maximum for the second day, but he's still away off the leaderboard. Alessandro Petacchi, remember, has more stage wins just at the moment. McEwen again tickling the win. Hasn't quite got that final acceleration this year like he had last year. Overall, sorry Paul, overall no change. There's confirming that the riders who were delayed all given the same time. Garzelli still in the pink.
Well, just to come back to that quick thought on Robbie McEwen, I think he's using a much bigger gear this year, Phil, and he doesn't seem to have the acceleration.
All right, well, I'm not sure he'll have it today, because we're going out now on stage number 10, and this is just over 200 kilometres. We leave Montecatini Terme as we go up to Faenza. And there's a few second category climbs on this route, so it shouldn't be, in theory, a bunch sprint.
It's a very difficult day as we kind of move across the peninsula right now, and it's the first chance we'll get to see for one or two riders to go out and launch an attack. This is a move here by Gilberto Simoni. Now, this is a long way from the finish. We're still looking at around about 25 kilometres to go, and it's not really a major mountain pass, this either. It's only a second category climb. But Gilberto Simoni is never scared of going out on the attack, Phil.
Simone is an amazing rider. He's looking here to gain time on a day, really, when we wouldn't expect the big boys to go looking for time. He's got the team around him. He's hurting the riders. And there's the gap on Garzelli, 58 seconds. He could be taking the jersey here.
Well, his teammate there, Bertagnoli, was actually just in front of him at the moment that he attacked. And I kind of wonder if this was not a pre-organised plan to try and go out on the attack like this. They're not too far ahead right now, 58 seconds between them and the group which contains all of the major favourites, Casagrande, Marco Pantani and the rest, including the Maglia Rosa. But this this is a very brave move. You know, to go out with 25 kilometers to go. This is a man who's looking at winning this bike race after 3 weeks. Not on a stage like this, Phil. This is what you would call an average mountain stage. And I think, you know, I do think the group of the Maglia Rosa might just pull them back before the end, because there's only about 18 seconds in it.
Well, there's going to need a lot of work to be done. He's going to have to pull up all of his team around him if he's going to do that. Because, by the way, Nasdux didn't start today, the rider who caused that crash, just to let you know. Contrini also went out. And Brett Lancaster, Paul, the Aussie who's been leading out Graham Brown, he's also abandoned. But we're looking down now on a very workmanlike group here. And the pink jersey down there of Stefano Garzelli put onto the defensive as Gilberto Simone's pulled off what we would refer to as a pretty cheeky move.
Very cheeky move, but let's not forget, it's not the first time he's done this in races like the Giro d'Italia before. He always looks for an opportunity. I remember a couple of years ago he attacked on a downhill finish into a town in the rain and put a lot of the big favourites into difficulty on that occasion. He went on to take the stage, and it really was rather an impressive move by him. But this is a very brave move, because at 25 kilometers to go on what is basically a flat run in towards the finish, it is definitely a cheeky move right now. It looks like Marco Pantani has got himself into that group, and he was involved in a bit of a crash on the descent. Well, now you can see Stefano Garzelli's panicking a bit. He's all over his machine. He needs to just calm down just a fraction, get this group organised with him. There's 18 seconds between these two groups, and in the overall classification there's not very much between these two men.
No, there isn't, but there's enough. And I think he's going to come back anyway. 18 seconds, he should bridge that. But in the last 2 kilometers though, and it's still not looking terribly good for a little shift of the pink jersey here. We've only had 2 leaders, remember, Pataki and Garzelli. Simone is pushing very hard to be the next man in the driving seat, and he's chosen a very strange day to do it, and that may be why he's caught everybody off guard.
You should always expect the unexpected if you want to be a professional bike rider, because anything can happen. In fact, they've just niggled away 2 seconds there. It's out to 20 seconds now, the difference between the Simone group and the jersey of the group of the pink jersey, Stefano Garzelli. And you know what, Phil, he's not getting too many friends in this group, but he is getting some help coming through there from a man who used to be on the same team as him, Massimo Coldol.
Doesn't seem to be many teammates left around here either to help out Stefano Garzelli. He's relying on others to do the chasing. Well, the boys in red here are really using this to great advantage now. This has been a bit of a triumph here. Leonardo Bertagnoli has done a great turn, I think, for Gilberto Simone. And Simone may not win the stage, but he'll go for it if he can. Interesting there, the rider in the Championship of Norway jersey is Kurt Arsel Arvesen, former under-23 world champion, and never been a big winner. He's on the Fatka team here, but he's gone, and they're all looking at each other. I missed it too. Simone's gone, and Arvesen looked for a reaction, not come. But now Arvesen himself has decided to go after him.
Well, there's Tiralongo in second position there. Tiralongo's a good man to get in a breakaway with, because it means he's going to take a long pull at the front, and that's what he's doing right now. But cheeky move, Phil. Gilberto Simone will never give up. No. They're almost on his wheel here right now. Tiralongo's giving everything to pull back. The man who was a former winner of the Giro d'Italia, Gilberto Simone, on the front there in the red jersey.
A little bit of light rain falling, but I have to say that this has been a move of pure class by Gilberto Simone. Choosing a day like this to squeeze a few seconds out of the race. He's done it to perfection. He attacked on that climb. They didn't go with him. He got a group around him. He's hurt himself now because he wants time more than the win, and it's cost him the stage. He'll get the time. Arvesen gets the win. Tiralongo will be second, Simone third. The clocks have started now, and the pink jersey is about to transfer shoulders, I think, because the gap is beginning to open up. It's still about 20 seconds to these riders to the line, and don't forget there's a third place time bonus for Gilberto Simone as well, so he should get the overall lead. Here's the race for the line.
Well, I tell you what, they're all over the place right now. I can't quite see the pink jersey, but he's given an awful lot of energy. It's 25 seconds on the line, and I think that was Figueres came across there in first place, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is the time gaps, and Gilberto Simone was in third place there, so he'll get himself a time bonus as well.
It's close.
Very close.
Paul, we're within 1 or 2 seconds, and we'll have to wait for the official time to say if we are seeing only the third leader of the Giro. It's very, very close. There's no doubt who the winner was, and this is the first victory for Kurt Asle Arvesson since he won the Tour of Sweden in my record book, which was last year. He got 4 wins last year. He wins this by a second. Oh, Simone lost a second there as well. So this is going to be tight to see who gets the pink jersey of leader.
And he'll pick up at least 8 seconds for that 3rd position there as well. Yep. So it is going to be very close. I would say it will actually go to Gilberto Simoni by 1 or 2 seconds, but we have to wait for the official time gaps to come through. This group are losing themselves a bit of time. Not a problem for Mario Cipollini.
Well, he's had the last 2 outings with 2 wins, so he's pretty happy. He didn't expect to win this stage, really. In fact, he hasn't lost all that much time.
It looks a lot more relaxed than he did in the early days, though, when he was getting his sprint spoiled there by Alessandro Patacchi. But he's a great showman, and look at this.
Oh, Simoni. So they listen to the crowd. A tremendous cheer for Gilberto Simoni. Seiko's big season continues. He gets the overall lead. We'll wait for the official standings, but it can't be much. But Simoni has got, and there it is, 2 seconds. It's official. Garzelli loses lead by just 2 seconds. Andre Noe stays 3rd. Pelazzotti, all of the rest are the same familiar names, but the 2 boys at the top have changed ranks.
Cheeky move. You've got to really be a true champion to go out on a move like that. And even having done the majority of the work in that leading group of 4, Phil, he's still trying to sneak away and get the win.
Absolutely fabulous piece of riding as we now go on. There's 161 riders left in the race. We haven't lost many at all. And this now is stage 11 from Faenza to Sandona. And this will take us a massive 222 kilometres. Simone is now the man in pink. Patacchi still leads on points. Gonzalez is still the king of the mountains. And Didiesi is winning the blue jersey for the Intergiro.
Well, the most difficult thing on this stage from Faenza to Sandona de Piave really is the wind that comes in here off the sea. It's a very difficult part of the world here. This is probably one of the flattest stages of the Giro so far, and one that should certainly smile on the sprinters.
We're looking here at what has been a fairly big move today out on the open highway. The rain, as you can see, is now falling steadily. It's not cold rain, but it's making conditions a little bit slippery because we've had a lot of dry races this year, and when roads get wet, they tend to become quite dangerous.
Especially in this part of Italy, because they get such a lot of hot weather and a lot of vehicles in this part of the world using diesel engines. And once you get this small amount of rain coming over the surface of the road, it really makes it quite treacherous.
We're looking at the moment further down the classification. Casagrande cost him a lot of time on the climb of the Terminillo. He's still up there though in 9th, but 3:23 down. And the rain is pretty torrential at the moment, and the rider's not in any mood to do much. We're going through the classifications for you here at the moment. Patacchi has a 30-point lead over Big Mario. The 2 top sprinters ahead of Robbie McEwen, who's a little bit off the pace there with 89, and Garzelli with 2 stage wins, don't forget. He's picked up 71.
Nasty day here. First time we've had any serious rain here. As we look at the Intergiro, Di Biase there leading Magnus Backstedt but just 14 seconds, and then ahead of Eli Aggiano. And it's a very strange competition, this, by the way, and it's all basically decided on time bonuses. There are time bonuses for the top, I think it's 15 riders to cross the line at the Intergiro point. The clock actually stops, but the clock itself is not really important. It's the time bonuses, and Magnus Backstedt moved up pretty high there as Freddy Gonzalez, the only leader of the King of the Mountains classification since the Giro started.
That's absolutely right, and he's still in the lead ahead of Zabaya. Zabaya is a very interesting rider. He goes on these long breakaways all the time. He can sprint as well as stay away, and now he's up into 2nd place there. Seiko just ahead of Lampre in the team race by 15 seconds. Eliseo 124. Those 3 pulling away from the rest of the field at the moment. Now what's going on down there? That looks like a crash.
Been a crash. Somebody's gone down there, and oh, there's a nasty crash down there in the right-hand side. It's one of the riders from Vinny Calderola who's gone down, and I can't quite see who it is from this angle, but that must have been a very weird crash, Phil.
Well, that's I'm hazarding a guess here. I think it's Masson from Vinny Calderola. He's lying in the ditch. He must have flipped off the side there. And, well, I don't know how lucky that is, but he seems to have just come off the road.
Well, it's not a very pleasant ditch to go down into either, and I wonder if he must have broken something there. He's fine. It's always a horrible moment in the sport of professional cycling when you see somebody down like this. He's up now.
It's Oscar Masson.
That was a tough crash, and I don't think he'll be seeing the end of the Giro d'Italia this year, because that was a very nasty crash. They've got the stretcher there, and I would think he'll be finishing today's stage in the ambulance.
Very unfortunate indeed. I'm not too sure what's going on. These are the breakaways. We finally caught them up. They've been away for so long, I've forgotten all about them. Mirko Marini, Sergi Lelekin. 35 kilometres they went away, and they have swept them up.
Not very far to go either. What a great move that was. On the front end, you can see Domino Vacanzi getting it organised there for Mario Cipollini, but it's a bit of a dodgy sprint into the line here this afternoon, Phil. There's a very nasty corner with around about 350 metres to go.
Well, look at the surface here. It's like glass just now as the riders are coming into the finish here in Sandona. Now Cipollini looking for a third win to take on Pataki for that points jersey, and he's in a perfect position because he's still organising his team. Looks like McEwen was involved there as well.
McEwen was right. In fact, McEwen got himself right to the front in the corner. Let's not forget, Robbie McEwen used to be a very good BMX bike rider, and he actually decided to slow down and try and get onto the wheel of Mario Cipollini, but Alessandro Pataki wants it too.
The big three are all together, and Isaac Galvez is there too, 101. Bernard Eisel, a little bit of move up the outside with the Fatka boys, so Magnus Bagstead must be getting in the mix, and somebody has dived off to the left of the road and gone for it.
Big charge, and they're being chased down there by Domino Vacanzi. Angelo Furlan is up there as well. He's right on the wheel of Alessandro Pataki in the Alessio jersey. Now this is a big strong move from Tenax. This looks like Martin Havastia going away, the Slovenian, as we go inside the final kilometre right now.
Well, I'll take my hat off to you there, Paul. I haven't a clue who it is, but he's gone away anyway. As they're into that last kilometre now, there is still one more turn to come before the line. You can see how dangerous the road surface is, but the sprinters seem to have sorted the order out. They've got control yet again at the front. Remember, Mario Cipollini is now on the outright record. He's looking to go too clear of it if he gets the win again today. He is in a perfect position. The same lead-out boys have got him in line. Lombardi looking to lead him out once more. Pataki is cruised in right behind him. Furlan just behind Pataki as they line up for the finish now. McEwen is also there as they come. Watch that dog on the right of the road. That is not the place for a dog. It's the best seat in the house though, Paul, as they come to the bend now. Still the lead out and still the final jump for the line as they now lean to the left. There goes Cipollini, and Isaac Wendy's taken Cipollini, and they're all going. McEwen has got through. McEwen has got through. Cipollini is down and Isaac is down. I think that's Furlan as well as they ride it. Well, I'm sure, yes, there's McEwen winning the stage. That man has got such bike control, he'll never fall off because he was a great rider as the BMX. But look at the face here of Mario Cipollini. In fairness, it wasn't his fault. He was taken out by the rider from Kelme.
The rider from Kelme just took the wheel from underneath Mario Cipollini. Cipollini having a few words there. I don't think he's that aggressive, just saying, well, you know, it could happen to anybody. But he does look certainly very dazed indeed, and that was a very nasty crash. Robbie McEwen, he came out of there with no problems at all. And there's Pataki. He also was able to pick himself around that little incident. What a move by, I have to say, by Robbie McEwen, because he really is pretty agile not to have come down in that one.
Well, Pataki actually crossed the line in second place. He also avoided the problem, so he'll increase his lead in the points competition. I'm not sure whether Robbie knew exactly what happened behind. He was looking around wondering where they'd all gone. Look at this. Watch the boy in green and white. Loses his wheel. Falls very heavily. Oh, that's a nasty hit on the barriers there. Furlan joins them on the floor. The three top sprinters down. McEwen made absolutely no mistake at all. He was through. Look at this. Straight through on the inside. He must have known what happened, in fact. Oh, no, he's up there. No, he may not have known.
I don't think he did. He went round the corner in first place, let's not forget. And that really was. There's Pataki. He almost lost it as well. I don't know how he kept it up because they're going down like dominoes.
And it wasn't all due to the one crash. In fact, they were all falling for the same reason that Isaac Galvez fell. They simply slid out of the action. McEwen, every muscle in his body flexing, powers that bike to the line. He gets the second win of the Giro for him. He looks over and thinks, that's a big gap, as Pataki comes over in second.
What I can't understand, Phil, here at the Giro, there was such a magnificent boulevard coming down into town. Why they had to have a left-hand turn at about 300 metres to go? There was no need for it at all. In the international governing body's rules for the World Championships, you would never be allowed to do this.
No, at least Chippo had a soft landing right on the top there of Galvez.
Well, it was soft.
Was a real thump into the barriers, wasn't it?
It was soft until they hit the barriers. I tell you what, really, Cipollini will have a hard time getting up from that one.
Furlan went right into the metal part of those barriers as well. But there's the official result. McEwen gets it over Pataki, Damore and Kalilov. A few strange names creeping in there after the falls. And there were time gaps given. McEwen getting a 2-second advantage on the line.
Big surprise there for...
no change overall. Sorry, Paul. There we go.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Still Stefano Garzelli just 2 seconds in arrears, and Andrea Noe up there in third place. It really was a dramatic sprint though, Phil, and I have to say the organisers, I suppose, have been pretty lucky, because if the weather conditions had been worse, we'd have had a few more crashes like that. Well,
we're going to remember Sandona, that's for sure now, to rejoin the action on the 12th stage of the race, 185 kilometres, but taking us now to the famous climb of the Monte Zoncolan. And this will strike fear into the hearts of not only the non-climbers of the Tour. This is reckoned to be the steepest climb in any race.
Very difficult climb. The riders leaving the Adriatic coast behind them, and unfortunately the Giro will carry on without one man, Mario Cipollini, who really went down very hard there in that crash yesterday, Phil. And I have to say that after being kept in hospital overnight, wasn't allowed to start this morning.
Neither was the rider that took him out, actually. Galvez, also sadly a non-starter, so that sprint claimed 2 top sprinters yesterday. There's Cipollini being driven away. At least he spared the rendezvous with the Zoncolan, which wouldn't have been his favourite terrain anyway. And we're looking here at the crowd. It's a beautiful day, thank heavens, up on the mountain. This is the last 150 metres for you. It is very, very, very steep. And they're talking of riders fitting on quite ridiculous low gear ratios.
It's a long climb too, 13.3 kilometres. It's given an average gradient of 9%, but that really doesn't take into effect that in the early part, the average is only around about 4.5%. It's really towards the end when it kicks up to 15 and 16% gradient, and that's where it's really going to hurt everybody in this bike race.
Well, they're saying that they fitted on things like 32-28 gears today to get them to the top of this mountain. At the moment, looking at Brusagian here, this amazing man who's riding better and better every day, yet he never wins races, yet he is a superb bike rider, Marcio Brusagian.
Well, he's obviously having to take a bit of responsibility away from Aitor Gonzalez, who really has not been the man that they were signed up to be, Phil, by this team.
Well, Brusagian got away, 55 kilometres to go, and there's a little bit of argy-bargy here. Gonzalez arguing at the top of that climb.
Well, what happened there was, in fact, Vladimir Belli wanted to go for the sprint, and I think Gonzalez thought that he had the right just to have it, as he was the leader in the King of the Mountains classification.
Yes, because he's been given both the second places on the climbs. Brusagian's been clear over the top of them both. But Gonzalez will keep his lead in the King of the Mountains for a while longer, as we're heading up towards the last climb of the day now, and it's going to be a free-for-all, I think.
Tell you what,
he's the leader.
Got an idea of who wants to do something special on this stage. When you look at the front end of that group, it's completely red with Seiko jerseys. They obviously want to try and set something up for Gilberto Simoni. This is the kind of climb for him here this afternoon, but I'm sure he's going to get matched very much by the man who's second in the overall classification, Stefano Garzelli. Marzio Brusagian, though, he's trying to just steal a bit of glory on a stage like this and hope that he can survive the onslaught of the riders coming up from the rear.
Well, this man hasn't won a bike race, yet he always seems to have the class to do it. He's a terrific workhorse. There's this drop back here. There's Vladimiro Belli. Always a man that surprises. And this is the little chase group now. Caucioli, also ridden well in this race before, and Sandy Cesar. But now, as the helmets come off, ready for the climb up to the finish of the Zoncolan, it's going to be showdown time now. Now, there's the pink jersey of Gilberto Simoni immediately coming to the fore here. They know that there's big time on offer at the top of this mountain. And it looks to me as though Simoni is about to get into the driving seat. He's looking very, very active, shall we say.
Well, there in the yellow jersey just behind him, though, was the man who is just 2 seconds behind him in the overall classification, Stefano Garzelli. He knows exactly who he's going to follow here this afternoon. Michele Scarponi up there in 4th place. Francesco Casagrande hoping he's going to handle this climb a lot better than he handled the Terminillo. And right up there, moving up, riding pretty well right now, Georg Tocznik as well. But look at the damage that they're doing, Phil. And all of that has really been done by Team Saeco of Gilberto Simoni.
Well, they want to get to the lead on this climb, there's no doubt about that, and it's up to Garzelli now to form an answer. So too, of course, Casagrande, to wipe away the bad memories he had on the Terminillo and see just exactly what he can do. There's the lone leader for the moment, Bruseigin. We've got Belly now looking to get rid of his hat, which he's done. He's also ahead at the moment. These are the remnants of the big breakaway as we look at the pink jersey there of Simoni.
There's Belly, and I think he's very shortly going to get picked up by the rest of the pack. He's a great bike rider. He's been around for many, many years. He's currently 12th in the overall classification, over 4 minutes behind. But do you see the size of those sprockets on these bikes?
Frightening. They're the sort of gears that I would go out on a Sunday ride on.
The sort of gears I wouldn't use because I wouldn't want to go up a hill quite that steep. Really a great bike rider. The sad thing was a couple of years ago he was ejected from the Giro d'Italia when he was lying, I think, in 3rd place in the overall classification for bopping one of the Simoni hooligans on the nose, and I would have given him a few points because it was quite a good clock.
It was a good shot. Well, there were 10 riders all together here trying to control Marzio Bruseigin, but they're spread around the mountain now. Then we've got the group containing the race leader, and they're closed in wholesalely because this group was never much more than 45 seconds ahead of the group, which quite clearly now is moving up behind. So Vladimiro Belli on the lower slopes of the Zoncolan, bit further up the climb himself, and I think he was even waving there, is Bruseigin. He might be calling for some advice from the car behind.
Testa della Corsa, that means the front end of the bike race. And in fact, yeah, Phil, this man Marzio Bruseigin, he turned professional back in 1997. The last 4 years he's ridden for Banesto, and this year he's decided to come back to his Italian blood. And that looks like Aitor Gonzalez at the back of the group there, not really enjoying this bike race at all, is he?
No, he isn't really. I mean, I was surprised a little way to see him in it. I thought he would have been saved for the Tour de France, but maybe he's here to try and lift his form rather than win the race, because he certainly hasn't played a race winner's part in the Tour so far.
Well, there's Simone up at the front there with 2 teammates alongside him. There is Stefano Garzelli. There's Marco Pantani at the back of the group, still managing to stay in the front end of this race as we go further up the slopes here. And in fact, I think Vladimiro Belli has decided to take off alone in pursuit of Marzio Bruseigin. He's had 11 victories as a professional bike rider throughout the years, and that's quite a nice piece of chainring he's got on there, Phil.
Well, that's the latest design, actually, and he's going to need all the help he can get on this climb. As they start the climb here now, it'll bite a lot harder than this. 38 seconds the gap as Belli tries to get on turns with Bruseigin, but I have to say that it's not too far back to a very select group here. Just handing in his crash helmet there, Marco Vello of Fassa Bortolo. And then comes Kim Kirchen. He wants to do the same. He's the Luxembourg rider, the young rider on Fassa Bortolo.
Daniel Clavero moving up there as well in the Mercatone Uno strip, one of Marco Pantani's henchmen. And it looks as if we've got a bit of control on the front end of the group here. This is Eddie Mazzolini. And Gilberto Simoni just moving back for the first time into about 7th or 8th position. In 4th position there with the bald head on the right-hand side, you can see Stefano Garzelli looking very attentive. Marco Pantani as well, moving up towards the front as well.
Interesting that, isn't it? Pantani in and out the saddle. I wonder if he can just show us a glimpse of his past, because this is a climb he would have adored.
The crowd certainly love Marco Pantani though, and he seems to be riding himself into the Giro d'Italia this year, riding better as the weeks go on, and that very often is the case with a slightly older rider. Marco Pantani's heyday and his best days certainly behind him, but if he could do a couple more good rides at a race like the Giro d'Italia, that would help to keep everyone happy. There's the leader of the King of the Mountains competition, Freddy Gonzalez, in that early breakaway, and right now back in the fold.
Well, he's been, as Paul said earlier, the only leader of the King of the Mountains. He's got 2 second places today on the climbs of the Fuest and the Sella Valcalda. So he should have done enough to keep his lead overall in that competition, but I don't think he's going to score on the Zoncolan.
This is the time gap now. This, in fact, is Belli closing down on Bruseigin. It's down to 15 seconds right now. Bruseigin, as you said, Phil, never won a bike race in his career, which began back in 1997. The group here setting up for what's going to be a battle. Good to see Julio Perez there on the left-hand side. Lost a bit of time on the big mountain summit of Terminillo, but maybe trying to get some kind of revenge. This is the kind of climb that would suit him. 15 seconds to Belli, 40 seconds back to the chasers. And we're still
He's just 10 kilometres coming up.
Still a long way to go to the summit.
Yes, it is, but we've still got the steep parts to come. This is the easier, lower slope here of the Zoncolan. 6 miles still to go to the summit. And I think there's nobody missing from that group at the moment. Noe's there, Garzelli, Simoni I've seen, Popovic, Francesco Casagrande I've seen, Marco Pantani, Pelazzotti and Tonkov are all there. So at the moment, the key men are yet to make a move. Here's the catch at the front. It looks like we're not going to see it, so we go back down to have a look. There, Julio Perez, there's Garzelli, and there is Simoni. Pelazzotti unhooking a little bit there. Perhaps he's going to be the first to crack. There's the latest 40 seconds and 1:24. I think it's now just a straight 1:24.
Right now we can see a lot of riders in difficulty there, and here's a man who we haven't talked about much either, Dario Frigo. He's just trying to stay in contact with this group. He's a kind of rider who is always promising to be a 3-week Grand Tour rider, but when it comes to the big mountains, I think he's a bit limited. He's a great time trialist, but he maybe just a bit too heavy to get up these big steep climbs.
I'll tell you what, I caught a glimpse there of Andrea Noe, and there he is again. He's the 5th rider off on the right of our picture. He's riding right near the sharp end as we go under 10 kilometres to go at 1 minute and 6 seconds. That's not a lot, not with 6 miles to climb, and all of the good climbers are right here.
It's not a lot, and I don't think it's enough either, because Vladimir Belli, looking at him here, he's struggling with this gear, and he hasn't yet got to the very steep part of the climb. But he could be setting something up for his teammates, because Raimundus Rumsas is high in the overall classification. And with a good ride here this afternoon there, you can just see Francesco Casagrande in front of the pink jersey. He could also pull himself back into this race, because I reckon he's got great form. Looking down here to see who's been left from the group, and there you can just see Giuliano Figueras has been dropped, but also there as well one of the riders from Denardi Kolpak, Gaspari. And they'll be thinking about the position of their leader, Sergei Honchar, and I think Honchar is in the group. He's in a light blue jersey.
1:06 still the time gap here, and Garzelli looking rather sharp today as he moves up. Remember, he's been the king of the mountains so far when it's come to winning the stage at the end of tough days. He's had two top of the mountain stage wins, and the riders who won the original breakaway group is just dropping back through our picture there as they come back into the action. Belli looking very cool, calm and collected on the climb here, giving Lamprey a good day out, I think, but not the rider we wanted to see. Well, we don't mind who we see, but I mean Casagrande is the rider that they would like to see up at the sharp end of the race right now, to see if he really does have one win in those legs still.
This man turned professional at a very, very young age. He was around about 20 years of age when he turned professional back in 1992. And right now I get the feeling that Lamprey are on a plan today, Phil, to maybe try and move Francesco Casagrande a bit higher up in the overall classification. You know, it's always strange when you get the first mountain in a bike race, and maybe he had some strange things going on with his body, and he's riding himself now into a bit of form. They've stopped the cars. That was Belli's car there, so Belli's not very far in front right now. You can see in second place there Stefano Garzelli, Marco Pantani just sitting towards the back of the group, and Dario Frigo not enjoying his day out.
I think he's come off the back there. Dario has lost a little bit of ground. That group is getting smaller as the hill gets steeper, and we've still got the steep section to come before we get up to the line now. Tonkov is still down there in that orange jersey, pretty easy to pick out. Garzelli, Simoni, and our camera lifting up a little bit, so who are we going to see? It should be Belli. There's one rider there, and just the one, and Bruce-Agin. So Belli, I think, is going to be picked up pretty soon now. He's not going to get up to Bruce-Agin, or has he gone past him? Surely not. Yes, he has. So I don't think we saw the pass, did we? So Bruce-Agin has now been passed there as he comes up now, and Belli goes on relentless. So Bruce-Agin, he'll be soon back in the group, but this might be a move here. It's up to Belli if he can keep the pressure on, because there's no real reason yet. He's about 5 or 6 minutes behind the men at the top of the leaderboard overall, so they've got no real reason to chase him down yet.
Well, he's just going to try and ride into his rhythm, but this race starts to kick up rather nastily once they get out of the tree line. When we get up to the top of this climb, we go out into a very large open area, and that's when the gradient really starts to kick in. There's a couple of sections where it's actually reported to be 20%. There's Bruce-Agin just a little bit further in arrears. I'm fairly certain he'll get picked up quite smartly by the rest of the group, which contains all of the top leaders of the bike race right now. Nobody really under difficulty. as we go inside of around about 9 kilometers to go. The pink jersey, very comfortable there in 4th position. This is the kind of climb that I think he would wait, Phil, till around about 4 or 5 kilometers to go and try and accelerate away. On his wheel, Julio Perez, and not too far away from him, Marco Pantani. And I wonder if Marco has still got a bit of sparkle in those legs of his.
Well, if he has, and there he is, he'll do it with a fast acceleration like he used to. And but judging by that face, Paul, we might be expecting just a little bit too much from him. As we now look at Garzelli as well here, and there's just behind Simoni, you've got Pantani. But you know, Brusagian went away 55 kilometers still to ride. We're now getting up towards 5 kilometers to go. He's been in the front a long time. He's been passed only by Belli, and it's 23 seconds and then 45 seconds, the 2 distinct time gaps. Now here's Brusagian, and there's the tempo behind now. He's not going to be away much longer, but it's been a fine piece of riding by him. It's also been an interesting diversion for his team because it's created others. Pelazzotti hanging on the back just about. This looks like there may be a 4-man drop-off here.
If we can look a bit further up the road, I think that acceleration has put Pelazzotti into difficulty, into the red zone. It's Georg Tocznik going off the back of the group there as well, and it looks as if Dario Frigo has ridden himself back into the group. He's an amazing bike rider, very courageous, Phil, to be able to get dropped and come back like that, especially when you see the work being done on the front there by Daniel Clavero.
I agree, I'm absolutely amazed. And Fast has got a couple of riders tagged on there just now. Clavero doing all of the pacemaking. Garzelli again waiting for the last moments. Meanwhile, up front, riding his own tempo, is Marzio Brusagian. And here they come, not very far behind him now. I don't know whether Marzio's going to have any legs left to get on to this very select group of climbers coming up. He looks very strong at the moment.
Well, he looks strong at the moment, but he hasn't got to the tough part of the course right now, and he'll get picked up in the next kilometre or so, but he's not going to give up either, is he? He's just keeping his tempo going, and at 8 kilometres to go, we're still looking at one lone leader, but his advantage, Phil, is coming down slowly but surely. The last time check we had was 45 seconds. I know Vladimir Berry is a great bike rider. He's ridden high in the overall classification of races like the Vuelta a España and the Tour de France, and here are the Giro, but somehow I don't think he's got it on his legs on this stage, because this is going to be a big battle. There's Raimundas Rumsas, 117. Popovic, it's good to see him there. He's climbing high in the overall classification, and there is Sergei Honchar, number 41, the leader, of course, of the Denardi Kolpak team.
Yes, Popovic, you've got to remember, he's just over 23 years of age, and he was first Giro last year. He was 12th, and he's riding right up on the overall classification at the moment, and he's having a great ride. He's still in there, pedaling visibly a lower gear than anybody else in the group. Here come the boys. Clavero still, Mercatoni Uno, looking where his team leader is, Marco Pantani. Garzelli always watching.
Casagrande looks a lot better today as well. They're just alongside Garzelli on the left-hand side, out of the saddle, dancing quite nicely. They're all worried about this climb though, Phil, once we get up to the summit. It's a long climb, as I said, 13.5 kilometers. The average gradient is 9%, but it's those last 4 or 5 kilometers where it really does start to dig in. It's going to hurt 1 or 2 people.
Altitude 1,000 meters. Oh, we've a fair way to go yet before we get to the top. It'll really bite. Belli on his own. Brusagian wiped out. Marco Pantani, is he planning an assault or is he hanging on?
He still looks pretty good. He looks, I mean, it's a long time since I've seen Marco Pantani suffer like that to stay in with a group. And he's actually put a very special pair of wheels on there as well this afternoon. Very deep aerodynamic carbon fiber rim. So he might be planning something in the latter part of this stage. The race situation right now just around the corner, and it is literally only just around the corner for Vladimir Belli. And he's in front of a group which has rapidly reducing in numbers over the last kilometre or so.
But still using the pace to crack them. Nobody has attacked from that group as yet. They're all so respectful of this climb. They also cannot be sure whether if they attack, they'll have the legs to carry the attack off. So they're waiting till the last possible moment. Obviously, Simone's in the driving seat. It's up to everybody to attack him, and he's just going to watch and wait. Garzelli, to me, is the most dangerous man. He's riding in his familiar second wheel position, and he's waiting for the moment to go. Now, did somebody sprint off to the right there? We need our camera to swing around a bit. I thought there was a move. We'll find out very shortly, I'm sure.
Well, most of the big names are in this group here right now, and just riding there for the CC Polsat team, it was interesting to see that in fact one of the younger riders from the Polish team has got in there.
Well, we're dropping back to just check out what is going on here, and now beginning, that's be Sandy Kazar, who's dropped off the back. He's a young boy with a great future, and he's just dangling off the back of this rather select little group at the moment. That's Adolfo Garcia is the Kelme rider on the back. I'm a little bit surprised to see him still here, I must confess. Concentration there, looking down now, also here at Pietro Cacchioli. Got his hair dyed blonde for the occasion. It didn't fool us, though.
Didn't fool us, and it's not done him very much good either, because he's gone off the back, and I'm surprised to see him going off the back quite so early on this climb. He must be going through a spot of bother right now. Garzelli riding very dominantly, Phil, at the front. This is a show of force right now. He's trying to show the other guys in the group that he's in great form already. He's not worried about the fact that he's 12 months out of competition. He knows he's got a very good chance of getting high up in the overall classification, and he's probably thinking in the back of his mind, I wonder how Simone is today. And he might get a bit of help from his old teammate Marco Pantani, because for many years those two rode together on the Mercatoni squad.
Just thinking forward, as once we're over the top of this mountain, the time trials are late in the Tour this year. It's 3 days before we get to Bolzano, and then it's a 42-kilometer individual time trial, so the climbers having their say for the moment. But let's not forget also, we finish with a time trial in Milan. That's another 40 kilometers then. So people like Simone will not feel too happy about the time trials. They need time here. Garzelli can ride a good time trial.
Garzelli certainly can ride a very good time trial. Aitor Gonzalez was in the group there, so maybe he's getting better as the Giro goes on, but certainly he hasn't had the year we expected from the man who last year dominated, or should we say terminated, the Vuelta a España, the nickname he picked up last year because he was the Terminator in all of the individual time trials.
Well, Vladimir Belli here, riding his own race at the moment. Rumsas behind, looks as though he's starting to feel the pressure. The concentration on Marco Pantani here.
Yeah, but Simone, did you see his face? He looked like he was out for a picnic. He was really not under any stress at all, just sitting there nice and comfortably. He's waiting for the moment, and he'll wait till it starts to kick up. He likes it when the gradient really begins to bite, and he can then start to put the hammer down.
Well, they're waiting. The dinner plates, which they've got for on the back cluster there, haven't been called upon yet, but they know they will be. There's still a nasty sting in the tail on the Zoncolan. 6 kilometers to go, and I think as soon as we hit the steep section, Simone, Garzelli, and whoever can go with them will move away.
Well, Pantani's got a couple of teammates in this group with him. I just saw Massimo Codol at the back end of that group, and if we look at the tempo of that group of all of the favourites, it seems to be a lot more consistent than the move here by Vladimir Belli. And I wonder if Belli's going to survive that much longer, because he's still only got about 35 seconds over this group. Pantani, every time you see him there in the yellow jerseys, out of the saddle, dancing on those pedals, trying to keep himself up alongside the men who in the past he used to put into difficulty on climbs like this. And Frigo's still there. He's pulled himself back into the group. Quite remarkable.
It is, but it does suggest to me that nobody yet has turned the pedals with anger, and it's a matter of just hanging on. And I think he's done well to recover, but there's been nobody yet put the pressure on to break this group up. There's Dario Frigo dancing there in the white.
Well, you can see here the gap is fairly steady here at 46 seconds, but I agree with you, Phil. I don't think they've actually really started to turn on the gas right now. This is just a question of setting the tempo, keeping it nice and steady, making sure that the weaker riders from the group are left behind. But the fact that Gonzalez and Frigo have brought themselves back into this race really is quite interesting. Sitting on the back there, by the way, was the Luxembourger from Fassa Portolo, Kim Kirchen.
Now through the trees, we pick them up again. Nobody's changing position. They're all thinking and wondering who's going to make the first move, who's going to hurt us. Casagrande looks okay. He's climbing this a heck of a lot better than when he was climbing the Terminillo a few days ago. Looking much more aggressive now. There's a sharp right-hand turn coming up round this hairpin. We are steadily getting steeper. Simone looks good. He's sitting there riding on the top of the handlebars. So too does Popovic. He looks absolutely relaxed, that man, climbing very, very well. Little bit of trouble there for Adolfo Garcia, the Kelme rider. Back up at the front now, we've got Vladimir Belli, this small man who's a real powerhouse. He can sprint when he wants to, and he can certainly climb.
The other orange jersey in the group here from CC Pulsar. Oh, look at this. This is work that was done by Christian Gasparoni. He's obviously done his job for his leader this afternoon and said, ciao for now, see you later, chaps.
He did a terrific piece of riding. He's taken them right up to the start of the steep climb now. The tempo again has been picked up. Mazzolini becoming the pacemaker as he was the other day for Stefano Garzelli, and Garzelli is still looking extremely good, but he cannot know how his body's going to react because he hasn't got the racing miles in for the best part of a year. Meanwhile, at 5 kilometres to go now, the kilometres are taking more than 2 minutes to accomplish.
3 miles of racing to go to the summit, and still Belli is surviving. We've got a time check going on that 5 kilometre to go banner. Just moving up there, we got a quick glimpse of Andrea Noe, 3rd overall in the standings. Great bike rider right now, and this man has been a great bike rider over the years. Used to ride for Seiko, and over the last couple of years has been a very good team man, Eddie Mazzolini. Doesn't mind doing any amount of work for a team leader at all. Stefano Garzelli looking comfortable there on his wheel. Francesco Casagrande, strange style of his out of the saddle, dancing on those pedals, keeping himself right on the tail of the man who was a former winner of the Giro d'Italia and a man who was ejected just 12 months ago for putting in a positive drugs test for probenecid.
43 seconds they're saying at the kilometre banner there.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's only lost 3 seconds in the last 2 kilometres, so he's actually riding in exactly the same tempo as these guys.
You had tempo climbing here by Mazzolini. They're still chasing Belli though. They're not so much worried about his whereabouts, the steady tempo, but clearly he's hanging on. 43 seconds the gap.
Stefano Garzelli in second position there, looking very concentrated right now. He knows he's got to do something very special today, Phil, to stay in contact with Gilberto Simoni, who is just behind. You can see his head every now and again just bouncing out of the saddle, and now the tempo really is starting to tell. Looks like Brozhnia just coming off the back there for the new CCC Polsat team. I think it was Baranovsky actually just going off the back of the group.
Yeah, well, it could have been Brozhnia as well. They were in the original move, but they've been slowly one by one have come through and been dropped off. There's nobody else ahead now, only this rider here, Belli. As they continue the climb of the Zoncolan. Frigo still tagged on to the back. He's under pressure but not being dropped, and Popovic there looking very good, riding here just behind Gilberto Simoni.
Well, I should have to think there's going to be a big attack going to happen in the last 3 or 4 kilometres. There's Popovic. He's still looking very calm, and at 23 years of age, Phil, this young man certainly has to be a star of the future, because he's really come to the fore last year when we saw him riding in the Giro d'Italia, but the way he's riding this year, he really is riding with a certain amount of confidence.
So to his Belli, but you know, it's a huge test for Garzelli today. He can't possibly know how his body is going to react to this climb. He's been out of the sport for a year and been just condemned to riding alone, and just the mentality of that is enough to blow your mind apart. It's a huge test for him today, but he's got the confidence of 2 stage wins at mountain summits so far, and it's a 4 kilometres to go now. Simoni also looking extremely cool in that Maglia Rosa there, the leader of the Tour now. As we look at the very select group, there hasn't been a single attack from this group at all. They just continue to show full respect for the Zoncolan.
That's Eddie Mazzolini on the front. He's been doing an unbelievable job for his team leader, Stefano Garzelli. Andrea Noe, as always, we never see very much of him, Phil, but he's always there, always thinking about a high place in the overall classification. And I'm really impressed with Marco Pantani this afternoon, because he's just never really seemed in difficulty, and maybe he will have a little bit something left in his legs when it comes up to this final climb of the day. I remember this man back in 1993 when he finished second in the Tour, the Kellogg's Tour of Britain, and on that occasion I think he was the best young rider. Dario Frigo at the back end of the group is still holding on. There's Georg Tochnik, and so is his teammate there on the back for Fassa Bortolo as well, Kim Kirchen. Vladimir Belli, though, he's still holding on to, I tell you what, he's not really losing very much of his advantage either, because as he keeps going on up this climb, he's still getting the time checks hovering at around about 40 seconds.
But this is, Paul, this is where it starts now. He's made that left turn. Oh, that's when he's going to start. His nose is going to start biting off the front tyre now.
It's really the part when it kicks up to around about 14–15%, but it's really, once they get to the summit, it kicks up to around about 20% at 1 or 2 times as they get closer to the top of the Monte Zoncolan. A lot of riders in there from Fassa Bortolo. They really are doing a fairly impressive job, and Aitor Gonzalez is for the moment still hanging on, which is really quite a surprise because he's not really done very much at all during the course of this season. You can see there the pink jersey of the leader Gilberto Simoni is just dancing all over his machine. I think he's waiting for it to get very, very steep, and that's the moment he's going to then obviously try and make some kind of a move. They're now really getting to the grippy part of this climb here right now, and but I have to say, Phil, what a great job that this man Eddie Mazzolini is doing on the front end of that field for his team leader Stefano Garzelli. And this actually helps Garzelli because it stops any change in rhythm, because I think that's the thing Garzelli is probably worried about, having had that amount of time out of competition. It's the change of speed, especially the kind of speed that a man like Gilberto Simoni can dish out on a race like this.
Well, Simone's looking probably the coolest of them all in the group there, but let's not forget that Pantani is still here and must be gaining in confidence now that he's hanging on to the best riders in the race. That group has gone down in size, but it's still a very select group at this stage of the Zoncolan. We are now getting into a situation here at a minute 24 to Pavel Tonkov, so he's been unhitched from the group and has fallen back. And now Belly here is about to get on to the steeper parts of the climb. He's starting to work his way down that cluster.
You can see that, and look at the road surface too. We're now getting to the top part of this climb, which is actually only open for a few months of the year because it's nearly always covered in snow, and it really is a very rough and difficult ascension that these riders are facing right now. Eddie Mazzolini on the front there, you know, he's had a pretty good season so far, Phil. He's maybe not one of the great winners of the sport, but consistency is the name of the game with Eddie Mazzolini. Earlier this year during the classics, the one-day classics, he was 10th in Flèche Wallonne. Oh, this is it. Look at this.
There's the acceleration it was waited for. I think Rumsas has answered Casagrande has answered, so too has Popovic. Garzelli caught a little bit there. He's having to dig a bit deeper. Now, as Garzelli got this is a moment of truth for Stefano. I think he has this time. He's hooked up. A quick acceleration there by Simoni as the climb starts to bite.
Well, this is the kind of climb that should suit as well Francesco Casagrande. 1:11 there, and it's the time we're inside of around about 4.5 kilometers to go right now, and this is really when the climb starts to dig and bite into the thighs. This is the first move we've seen, and I think we'll see another attack come from Gilberto Simoni right now. He's looking over his shoulder, Phil, just to check and see what sort of damage he's done. And at the back there, well, there's your answer about Marco Pantani, because he didn't like it.
I was smiling at the cheers for Pataki there. It's a while before we'll see Alessandro come up today now. This is the climber's domain, and it looks as though Marco is not going to answer the call there of that acceleration. We're in amongst the trees there. You can get some idea of the angle of the climb here now as we go back to the leader. But very shortly he is going to see the acceleration of Gilberto Simoni, and a little bit to my surprise, Casagrande.
Well, Casagrande is enjoying this climb. I said before the start of the Giro, Casagrande was a man who looked on superb form. Had a bad day on the Terminillo, and poor old Vladimir Belli, he's done the job, but now he's just got to try and survive. Popovic is coming up to the wheel of Stefano Garzelli. Garzelli's going to have to dig very deep now, Phil, if he wants to stay in contact with the pink jersey. This is Scarponi at the back with Marco Pantani, but this young man is doing a great ride.
Popovic, 23 years of age, living with the best on the mountain at the moment. Casagrande finding the steeper slopes of the Zoncolan a little bit more to his liking than the more gentle slopes of the Terminillo.
Not anymore.
But look at this, another rapid acceleration by Simoni. He has this wonderful ability to do this. We saw him try it 2 or 3 times on the Terminillo. It didn't work then. Garzelli hung on. But the slopes of this climb, that little bit steeper, and he's going to get plenty of cheers now, because there's no finer place to be when you lead a tour, and that is right at the front on the attack.
Casagrande cracked all over his machine there right now. He, I think, pushed himself maybe just a little bit too much to try and stay with Gilberto Simoni. This man, the crowd, look at that, Phil. They love him. Whatever's happened to him throughout his past, he is Mr. Popularity, and he's actually catching up. He's coming back
Still
to
very much in this.
This is amazing. This is, in fact, Marco Pantani coming back up to the wheel there of Stefano Garzelli. There is Francesco Casagrande. So Pantani's still in 4th place.
He's still in 4th. He's going to be in the top 10 certainly tonight in the overall classification, which should make him very happy. Simone looks to me as though he's on a runaway here. He's dropped Casagrande. I thought, oh yes, he's dropped Casagrande. I thought Casagrande was going to go up the mountain with him. But this is all according to plan for Gilberto Simone. He's going to increase his overall lead in the Giro tonight, and he's going to feel a very happy man because the time trials are still to come, and that is not his favourite.
Garzelli hasn't panicked either, though. You can see he's slowly come up to the wheel here, Francesco Casagrande. He knows probably in his mind that he cannot respond to the accelerations of Gilberto Simone, so he's allowed him to go, but now he's getting into his own rhythm and he's just going to try and peg him back. And in fact, he is starting to peg him back because Simone's not very much more than 15 seconds ahead of Garzelli. Garzelli's turning out to be a pretty tenacious bike rider.
Slow starter and a fast finisher. He just hasn't quite got that top-end speed. Maybe it's because of his lack of competition. But he's now coming back into the fray, and so too is Marco Pantani. Hats off to him. He's now joined the back wheel of Francesco Casagrande and Stefano Garzelli, and not that far ahead is Simone.
This is the best ride we've seen, I think, from Marco Pantani
Absolutely.
in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
And the crowd, as we get closer to the summit, they are going to go absolutely ballistic because they love this man. Whatever anybody thinks about him around the world, the Italians adore Marco Pantani. And in fact, they're riding themselves back into the wheel. It looked as if it was going to be a runaway win, as you said a few moments ago, Phil, but Stefano Garzelli is slowly pegging back here to Gilberto Simone, who is just through the trees there.
I think Simone himself might have thought he cracked them and the race was over for first place. But Pantani, because Casagrande is showing signs of cracking, the gap has opened. Garzelli has ridden right through these lot and he's now starting to go clear himself. And Pantani is having to just try, and here he goes. Marco Pantani is going to try and go with Garzelli, shoulder to shoulder now with Francesco Casagrande. This is the steep part now. This is where the big gears come in.
This hurts, this part of the climb here. Marco Pantani at home, the area which has created the legend of Il Pirata. Marco Pantani is now riding himself back into the storybooks of the Giro d'Italia. Francesco Casagrande is not enjoying the steepness here. In the corners there, when they go around some of these corners, it kicks up to around about 22%. It really is not fun, and it's great to see these two guys together, Phil. Garzelli and Pantani, they for many, many years raced together. The master and the disciple are reunited.
There's going to be a lot of people today so delighted to see Pantani. They look very similar, don't they, now, with their heads shaved as they climb together. Not quite the same team colours, of course, they're different teams. But now it is Pantani who is setting the pace for Garzelli. They are in the convoy, queuing up behind Gilberto Simone. And it looks as though the traffic there might be a bit of a problem.
Well, they're going to have to get all that cleared out as quickly as possible. The race referees are on board. They're trying to get it sorted out. But this is fabulous. This ride here by Stefano Garzelli. You know, you have to bear in mind that 12 months without a competition is a very, very difficult thing to come back from. And to see Marco Pantani also, kind of a comeback for Marco Pantani to the top end of the Giro d'Italia too. And these two men, if you blink and look at them, you'll not really remember which one is which.
Well, hats off to Marco. Here he comes again now over the top of Garzelli to try and keep the tempo going. And back towards them comes Casagrande and Popovic. Popovic also at 23 has got to be the star of the future of this group as he tries now to get on terms with Marco Pantani. Huge effort this. He actually feels he can reach Simone, I think.
I think he does. He really wants to win this stage. This is the kind of stage that in the old days would have been really the kind of stage for Marco Pantani. But look at that face, the grimace, the pain. He's giving everything he can to try and pull himself back up to Gilberto Simone. And with a ride like this, Phil, he's also moving himself high up in the overall classification. But this man just ticks away. It's up to them to catch him if they can, because he's got his own rhythm. He's sitting comfortably on that machine. He's the one with the advantage. It's a question of come and catch me if you can.
All of the crowd here are all looking and shouting at Marco Pantani. They're being treated to, at last, a display by this man. Let's hope he's got his brain in gear now. All of his problems, physical and psychological, we would love to see behind him as he now climbs up towards the summit. 1 kilometre to go for Gilberto Simone. hasn't, I don't think, got the sort of time gap he had hoped for or appeared to be getting as he broke away, because he's been levelled out and neutralised a little bit.
I think he'll be surprised by the fact that Stefano Garzelli has been able to stay that close to him on a climb like this, because Garzelli has never really been the great climber that Gilberto Simoni has. And look at that, the time difference between them at the kilometre flag there is only 22 seconds. He's still got a chance to open it out to 30 or 40, but this man on the front here, Stefano Garzelli, is certainly not going to give up at all, and it's a great comeback for Marco Pantani. And neither, too, has Francesco Casagrande lost all that much time. And Popovic, Phil, is going to climb himself right up into the top 5 or 6, I think, by the end of the day.
Well, Popovic has been a high flyer since this race began, but he has never shown us his great legs like he's showing us today. He's confirming himself now as a man who could really take this race on, and a man who could really challenge the big favourites here. Pantani looking now where Stefano Garzelli is. He's right behind him as they come side by side here. They have fought this all the way. They've gone round, remember, Casagrande. Casagrande was coming back. Not too sure whether he is now. This is such a brute of a climb. They're in the lowest gear now, and again another kick here and a quick acceleration. Pantani is trying to show us how he won those great mountaintop finishes in the Tour de France on the steepest climbs that the great tours have to offer.
Well, a quick glimpse there of Gilberto Simoni, the steepest part of the climb here. This is a beast of a thing to do to bike riders inside the last kilometre. It really does kick in deep. Simoni's out of the saddle. He's got it into the right gear right now. When you look on the right-hand side, you're almost looking at the terrible twins, Garzelli and Marco Pantani. They're both, I think, trying to urge each other on, trying to encourage each other. They keep going by, swapping the pace, going to the front alternatively, and that is what is preventing this man from building up the huge advantage that he thought he was going to get here on the Zoncolan.
It's only by the efforts you really get a feeling just how steep this mountain is. This is the steepest part. They've got the lowest gears in, and the way they tackle these climbs, look at the dish plate here on the back of Popovic. It looks like a 26 or 27 he's riding. This is Casagrande as he keeps on the wheel of young Popovic now. They are slowly but surely coming back to these two, and I'm a bit surprised about that, but Popovic is pacing Casagrande back to those two riders. Soon there will be 4 riders together chasing down Simoni. They're not going to catch him. Simoni's going to win the day and increase his lead.
Look at that, though. He's already been in the saddle for over 5 hours, and to put this at the end of a 5-hour ride really is a brutal punishment. Garzelli just wants to keep himself in contention because he feels he's the better time trialist, Phil, and let's not forget, if he can stay close to Simoni, there's always the possibility he can switch the lead in the individual time trials.
Absolutely. Now Simoni beaten when he took the race lead by Garzelli, now looking for the elusive stage win of this year's Giro. I think he's got it this time. And of course, when you're already the leader on time, if you win the day, you must increase your lead. You'll get also the win bonus as well, as Garzelli has refused to drop out of this picture. It's been a real tough climb for him. It's hurt him all of the way. Look at his face, but he is refusing to succumb. A year out of the sport, and now he's fighting his way back in.
Well, Marco Pantani too, you know, Marco Pantani has not won a bike race since the year 2000. On that occasion, he got himself 2 stages at the Tour de France. I think one of those was a stage at the summit of the Mont Ventoux. Garzelli digs deep right now. He's not going to catch back to Gilberto Simoni, but he's got a very good chance of making sure that he's limiting his losses here. Look at the way Simoni is breathing there. He's just trying to get as much oxygen into that body of his as possible. He looks resplendent in that pink jersey, and I think I caught a quick glimpse there of a pink saddle that he's riding on here this afternoon.
Yes, that's in fact the physique saddle, which he designed himself at the Bio Research Centre in Milan. And it's a flexi wing saddle, and well, he's not been in it too much today as he came up the mountain, but he is looking so strong now, so full of confidence as he climbs up towards the finish of what has been the biggest mountain climb in the Giro d'Italia. And it looks as though Gilberto Simoni can afford to smile now. First stage win, increasing his overall lead today. It's only a question to be by how much, and Garzelli now racing away here to second place. I'm not too sure what has happened to Pantani, but Garzelli is coming up alone.
Well, I tell you what, I'm absolutely impressed by Stefano Garzelli, because I'm sure that Gilberto Simoni thought he was going to get a much bigger time gap than what he's getting here this afternoon. Pantani still holding on, I think, to third place on the road. No, he's been overtaken there by Casagrande, so he's dropped back, but still, it's a great ride there. As you see, coming up to the line, the clock stops at 34 seconds for Garzelli. Not too far back either for the third place Casagrande, 39. And poor old Pantani just overtaken by Popovic.
Oh, well, that's a shame, but he got fifth nonetheless at the top of the climb and has gained time on the vast majority of people behind him as well. But you're right, Paul, Simoni may have won the stage, but he didn't sew the race up on this day. There's Andrea Noe, who was third overall. He might just hang on if he can get up there pretty quickly to third place. But Popovic can't be far off him now, and neither can Casagrande. He's lost 1 minute and 8 seconds, but of course that is to the winner of the day, which was Simoni, so he hasn't lost that much time. Aitor Gonzalez, a little bit further down, is also coming up. Far more respectable performance for the Spanish rider today too.
He's got his teammate there, Kim Kirchen, who's turning out to be a bit of a revelation as well for Fassa Bortolo. But this is the man who dominated last year the Vuelta a España. Keeps himself in with a chance, because let's not forget, Phil, Aitor Gonzalez is a very good individual time trialist. Here is Dario Frigo, himself a good time trialist, and he's actually done very well to recover over the last few kilometres. That Scarponi just coming in there for Domino Vacanzi. And it amazes me the way Dario Frigo can suffer on these climbs. He gets dropped, comes back, pulls himself in. Here's Rumsas coming in just now. He's lost a bit of time this afternoon. He's there with Georg Tochnik.
Yes, and these are the riders who've now really... There's Belly just crossed the line too, the man that set the pace up all of the lower slopes of the day. And Gonchar coming home as well. But here's the rider who has increased his lead today in the Giro d'Italia, Gilberto Simoni. 34 seconds he won by over Garzelli, 39 on Casagrande, and 1 minute 5 back to Julio Perez, the Mexican rider, former king of the mountains of the event. So the Zoncolan has made a few decisions, but not a clear leader. Simoni just 44 seconds ahead of Garzelli. It was 2, don't forget. Noe is in third, rather. Popovic is there now at exactly 3 minutes. So the same top 3, but the champagne is getting a little bit sweeter. And don't forget, we're heading the day after tomorrow into the Dolomites as well. So as we move on now, it's stage 13 for the riders, 149 kilometres. And we have 153 riders still in this race after 13 days of racing. So it's quite a big field still going along. We've only lost 16 riders in those 13 days, as the riders now head from Pordenone to Marostica.
Well, Marostica, it's a fairly flat stage again for the riders as they cruise through Bassano del Grappa down on the way into Marostica. And it certainly should be a stage for the sprinters. But as always, we've seen plenty of attacks going out off the front of the bike race here at the Giro d'Italia. And once again, this looks as if it's Dario Frigo trying to get himself a win here.
It is indeed Dario Frigo. We've had quite a few skirmishes, but nothing at all day, really. Moreno Di Biasi picked up the Intergiro. The in-battle there between himself and Magnus Bagstedt, with Gianvarada splitting him on this occasion. Freddy Gonzalez kept his lead in the King of the Mountains as the third category climb of the day. He went over the top of that first, over Fortunato Ballion. There's been a crash here. Now this is a fall out on the course.
And it's a pretty nasty crash too. It looks like one of the Tenax riders went down, and in the confusion a lot of riders are picking their way through the cars, and in fact that looks like Dario Pieri who's gone down there as well. He's gone down very hard indeed, and there's a rider who rides for Team Saeco. Let's have a look at it.
Well, Pieri was in a very unfortunate position there. Ouch, oh dear me, he ran right underneath the barrier, but he looks okay. But the 3 riders fell there. It's just simply a high-speed crash. That is Oscar Pozzi, and he's blaming everybody else. It looks as though he's already fallen before too, because he's got his left arm bandaged. Back up to the front here now as they try to break clear of the field, and this looks to me as though we've got Frigo now trying to slip away to the lead.
Well, in fact, somebody's caught him.
It's Tochnik. That's Gage Tochnik's got with him.
Well, he came through from absolutely nowhere there, because a few moments ago it was Dario Frigo on his own. Now this is very good. These 2 riders could survive off the front end of the group. Georg Tochnik is a very tough bike rider. He's a rider who over the years, Phil, has always promised to produce a star performance, but never actually been able to do that. He's always been in the high placings in the Grand Tours, never really getting himself onto the podium, and maybe this is the year that's going to change something for him.
So a good tempo riding. The peloton cannot be that far behind. They might well stay away to the finish because they're working extremely well. This would be a nice win if Frigo could get it, especially after his tough ride up the mountain yesterday. At 5 kilometers to go, though, the big mass charge is lining up, and this is a tough road to stay away on. That must be 4 kilometers now.
They're getting themselves organised, and you know there's not very much more than about 15 seconds advantage for these two men over the rest of that group. And I think it looked as if it was the pink jerseys of Lampre were getting themselves onto the front end of the main field. We've got a time check running on that gap there at the 4 kilometre banner. We'll have an idea just exactly what their advantage. Well, there it is. It's not very much more than 10 or 15 seconds to me.
No, and they're surely going to pull them in now. There's 18 seconds, they're still counting, but it's closing in very, very fast now. Look at the speed of that peloton through the trees there now. Frigo, I don't think, and Tocznik is going to survive this one. They've just gone around that right-hander, change of direction now for the field as they start to run down towards the finish in Marostica. And a chance now for, I nearly said Mario Cipollini, we lost him a few days ago, for Pataki now to try and organise the chase. We've lost quite a few sprinters really, most of them with crashes. Galvez went as well, and that's a shame in many, many ways because these days the sprinters can score on stages like this.
Testa della Corsa, those two riders leading the bike race for the moment, so you can see Team Saeco coming to the front to get themselves nice and organised. There's a last-minute burst there going from one of the riders from the Denardi Kolpak team. That will be Gaspari trying to slip off the front there, and this is a good move. If they form a three-man group at the front, they've got a slighter chance of staying away to the finish, but you can see just how quickly he's getting across this gap here right now.
That's a huge effort, that. Sprinted across the gap. There's the peloton right behind, looking at one another, trying to see who's going to take it up. Pataki's boys aren't that keen. Neither's the Gilberto Simoni. There, he's right there himself anyway. Keeping an eye on the first, staying in the front end of the group, which is the safest place to be. Gaspari here, with an inspired ride, is about to reach the two leaders, and the extra firepower could make the difference. Here he comes.
Well, they've got a big gap right now. It was almost down to about 15 seconds, and I would think once this man joins Phil, they'll start to stretch it out. Now they've got a good chance of surviving. And let's not forget, when it comes down to a sprint like this, Dario Frigo's got his chance of pulling off the win if he can. We're looking at around about 3 kilometers to go to the finish, but I thought as we looked back with the cameras there, I could just see the front end of the main field.
Well, Gaspari will need a few seconds there to recover. That was a very, very inspired chase. The adrenaline was pumping there. Here is the organisation behind, not as settled as it might be. It's Mario Manzoni of Mercatoni Uno setting the pace briefly. Now comes the train, and this is Pataki, boys. There's Pataki down there in the pink.
Well, I don't know where Pataki's come from because he wasn't there a few moments ago, and I think in fact he must have just managed to get on the early part of that descent because he was in difficulty a few moments ago, but he's definitely back in this group here right now. Now that's a bit of a surprise to me.
Well, he's obviously told his team he wants to go because he sent them boys to the front. Here's the three leaders.
And the news has gone through to Dario Frigo because he's stopped riding at the front end of this group. He's just going to sit there right now. I'm sure he's heard over race radio that his team captain or his team sprinter, Alessandro Pataki, is back into the group. Now let's just have a look and see where he is, because I tell you what, that is an amazing comeback.
He was definitely there. I saw him right at the front. I wonder if you're right. It could well be that Frigo here, a chance to win a stage for himself when his team leader, his team sprinter was out of it, has now come back in. At 2 kilometers to go, and look at this now, Frigo refusing to do anything at all as the move goes again. Graziano goes on his own once more and tries another little move here, and if he can get this, he certainly deserves it.
This is one of the smaller teams in the Giro d'Italia, the team of Sergei Goncha, and of course the team of Charlie Wagelis as well. And there you can see, looking over his shoulder, it's all back together now. You can see the organisation. The race has completely changed right now with the fact that Alessandro Pataki got himself back into this group on the first few kilometres of the descent. His teammates now, Fassa Bortolo, have taken over all of the pacemaking. And Dario Frigo going absolutely ballistic. Gaspari blown away. This is going to be another possibility for, there he is, in about 7th or 8th position, Alessandro Pataki, not too far away, Giovanni Lombardi.
Well, Lombardi's got nobody to lead out anymore, of course. Now that he's lost Mario Cipollini, he could think of winning for himself, perhaps. He packs a bit of a sprint finish. There he is. First man in the picture on the left, and 2 men behind him is the pink jersey of Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, I wonder if he's going to try and lead out Bernati, because he's the young kid that they've really been trying to nurture on this Domino Vacanze team, because Lombardi is actually riding in front of Daniele Bernati, and that may well be the situation. There you can see Lombardi. Right behind him is Bernati, the new kid on the block, and then not too far behind there's the Ciclamina jersey of Alessandro Petacchi.
Now 3 wins already, Alessandro Petacchi, don't forget. No Mario Cipollini to take him on now, and this should give him a clear run, but watch out for Giovanni Lombardi as they start to launch now. Here comes the one-on-one, the final lead out, but this time Bernati is setting on the wheel there of Giovanni Lombardi, and they swing up to one side here now, and a final huge lead out coming here for the youngster. And now can he move over? He'll have to go quickly because Petacchi's already gone. Petacchi didn't even wait for Lombardi to move over. Petacchi leading there, a good length clear of the field, and he got it. And I think that was a little bit of inexperience by Daniele Bernati. He should have gone early, and that was a good ploy by Petacchi. Didn't wait for that last man on Domino Vacanze to organise the sprint. He went too soon. 4 wins for Alessandro Petacchi.
It's amazing what 12 months can do, because a couple of years ago this man was overawed by Mario Cipollini, but the way he's winning the sprints now, Phil, he looks like Mario Cipollini. He's winning these sprints by 1 or 2 bicycle lengths. Look at this, straight down the middle. Challenge me if you can, because I'm just going to be a drag strip racer right the way to the line. He's got plenty of time to get himself the victory salute right up in the air there. But watch out for Daniele Bernati. I think give him a bit more experience. And look at that, the victory salute there showing us win number 4.
Well, the sprinters just love to do that as they come to the line, the whole peloton here. Robbie McEwen way down in the bunch, never got even up near Petacchi, and he said he's going home tonight. He doesn't want to go into the Dolomites tomorrow. Now he's off to prepare for the Tour de France. Remember, disqualified from one stage, but he came back and delivered a couple of good victories as well.
You see that yellow jersey in 3rd place? Stefano Garzelli getting himself a time bonus. This guy's not going to give up.
Good point, absolutely good point. A few seconds, that means he will have altered the overall classification by just about 8 seconds. All smiles, Gilberto Simoni still a race leader, and he won't worry too much, I don't think. Not with the mountains returning, his favourite terrain tomorrow. He'll still have a leader over Garzelli. And in fact, that's made a slight difference. 36 seconds now to Garzelli, 22.23 to Noe. 4th Popovic, basically no change at all there. The race now goes on towards the Alps and into the Dolomites, and it's going to be another tough day. We're on to the 14th day now as we say goodbye to Marostica and head to the Pampiago. 162 kilometres, just over 100 miles of racing today. First category climbs will take us all the way through to the Pampiago climb. It's going to be a tough day, and it's up to Simoni now to see if he can keep on coping with Stefano Garzelli. There's the contour for you. We finally climbed to the finish at the Alpo di Pampiago, having crossed 3 first category climbs in between.
Well, the big difficult climbs of the day are first of all the Passo di Rolle, followed by the Passo Valles, and then the Passo di San Pellegrino. But that final climb up to Alpe di Pampiago is a very difficult climb, around about 8.9 kilometers of climbing and 9.6% the average gradient. And we're now looking at 10 kilometers to go to the finish.
10 kilometers to go to the finish. Fede Gonzalez has been over the top of all 3 first category climbs together, in the lead rather. So he keeps his lead in the King of the Mountains competition as we now line up for the last climb of the day. These are the leaders at 1:47, the group.
Well, you can see just moving through there was Sergei Adviev of the Landbau Credit Colnago team. They'll be looking after their man. And this is the moment again, Phil, where it's hats off. There's Vladimir Belli. Testa della Corsa once again for him, trying to get himself a race-winning situation. He's a fabulous bike rider, always prepared to go out on the attack. I've been a professional since 1992, and he's always raced at the very top end of the sport.
Just a moment there when I thought Grishenko, I think it was on the phone.
There's Nocentini's in this group as well. He's a rider we saw ride very well a couple of years ago in the Tour de Langkawi, where he got himself a couple of stage victories. And but I tell you what, Phil, when you look at the drilled Seiko team on the front end of the main field, you can see that they want to try and set something up for their man Gilberto Simoni. Not too far away from him though is Stefano Garzelli, in a very cheeky move yesterday when he got himself third place in a bunch sprint to get himself the 8 seconds, and Eddie Mazzolini wasn't too far away from him either.
I think it's a good sign if you're looking for small time boats like that. That's a good sign that you're far from giving up the chase here. There is Garzelli now seeking out the Maglia Rosa of Simoni and doing well. It's a very, very big peloton that because we've come over these 3 first category climbs, but for some strange reason it's yo-yoed, all come back together again. It's just this breakaway on at the moment, but it's manageable as they now face up to the climb to the line.
Vladimir Belli at 8 kilometers to go right now. There's Nocentini just at the back there. It was and there's Freddy Gonzalez, very happy to just sit there and hope that he can get a few more points in the King of the Mountains classification. He's literally been unchallenged since the very first day of this bike race in this competition. Denny Lungi's in here as well as Federico Gonzalez. And again, Constantino Zabayo. He's an
amazing
bike
guy.
rider.
That's him there in the Kelme colours, and just off on his left shoulder in the orange is Paolo Lanfranchi.
Got to love a bike rider like that when you're a team manager, a man who's always going to get you into the breakaway situations, because it takes a lot of pressure off a team if you've got a man in the breakaway on TV all of the time, getting publicity for the team. Julio Perez in this group, he too will be looking for the victory if he can here this afternoon. He's moving up through the outside. I think he's given up the ghost of riding high in the overall classification. I think that was a mistake by the team management to try and keep him so close to the front in the early flat stages, because he lost an awful lot of his nervous energy, the nervous energy which saw him very dominant in the mountaintop finishes last year.
Well, the climb is steadily up from the bottom road here now, and this is going to start the climb, which is going to bite all the way up to the top of the race. There is the very select group of the pink jerseys. Simoni using what riders he's got left. He's one by the look of it at the moment.
Yeah, he's lost a lot of his teammates over the last couple of kilometres. Giuliano Figueras just at the back of this group, and Sandy Cassar as well, the young Frenchman who rides for Française des Jeux. He's also pretty high up in the overall classification, and I think doing quite a good job for the team.
Looks like Zabaya's having a little go to get away here. This man does not give up as he tries to continue to put the pressure on.
Yeah, he's gone around the corner. Look at the cobblestones here in this part of town as well. He said, we're going to get caught fairly shortly, he said, so I'm not waiting around for you guys, and I'm off. This is a great attacking ride here by Constantino Zabaia.
If ever a man deserved to win something, it's this man. He just never stops trying. It just has never worked out for him. But he really is an amazing cyclist. Big effort coming anyway. Let's hope he can do something this time. This is Julio Perez here. Rumsas just behind him. This will be the leading group. There is the... No, not the leading group. The leaders group, I beg your pardon. That's Simoni there. Mazzolini, Noe, Garzelli.
Not quite sure why Julio Perez is riding on the front here right now. I think he's waiting for the climb to kick in a little bit more as we go back to the man who leads the bike race at the moment at 7 kilometers to go. Constantino Zabaia turned professional in 2000. He's 25 years of age and really hasn't won an awful lot in his career. He did fairly well in his second year as a professional when he won a stage of the Tour of Portugal, but I think we thought he was going to go on to greater things when he actually won a stage of the Tour de l'Avenir. But right now, if he could get himself a stage win in the Giro d'Italia, well, then that certainly would be one to put into the record books.
Just the same style of riding that they had on the Zoncolan. Tempo riding, nobody jumping, not altering the speed at all. This will please Garzelli. He doesn't like the up and down accelerations of the climb. He doesn't seem to have the immediate answer as he starts there, and he's riding third wheel at the moment. Casagrande also in this group, and seemingly his bad day on the Terminillo is now a thing of the past. He's ridden very well this last week.
His teammate there in second position, Raimundus Rumsas. Big cloud around him after last year's Tour de France, when his wife was picked up with a lot of interesting medications in the back of the car, which allegedly were for her sick mother. But even so, I don't think Raimundus Rumsas has been back to France since then.
No, I don't think. I think he's afraid to go into France. The French police are quite well known for their interrogations, so he's staying out. Moving up on the outside at the moment is Leonardo Bertagnoli, who has been a very good teammate for Simoni, and he's now setting the pace there. 10 seconds to the lone Kelme man, and a minute 22 to this group, Maglia Rosa. Still Bertagnoli on the front, and Marco Pantani is still there, look, tucked over on the far side. He's got his lunch with it, by the look of him.
Well, Bertagnoli, Phil, is the only man left in this group from Team Seiko for Gilberto Simoni. They did an awful lot of work in the early part of the stage, just setting the tempo on the front end of the peloton all of the time for their leader. Zabaya looks as if he's about to get caught here by Belli. There is Belli. Just around about 10 or 12 seconds in arrears, and a little bit further back. It looks as if this group may well start to reform on the final slopes of this very difficult climb up to Pampeaggio.
Well, how many times have we seen Belli try to perform and always get caught as well? These are the two, I don't like to say big losers, because they're certainly not that, but the men who try hardest and don't get the full deserves of their efforts. But Belli having another go, and slowly but surely he's pegging back Constantino Zabaya. But the news is that everybody else seems to be slowly but surely crossing the gap as well. That looks like Perez down there, judging by his style. Oh, it'd be Paolo Lanfranchi, because this is the leading group, isn't it? As they start now to try and close that gap.
And there was Nocentini. I think he's going backwards, actually, and the other man up there as well who will be disappearing will be Denny Lunghi. Freddie Gonzalez, well, I don't think he's too bothered right now. I think he just wants to consolidate his lead in that King of the Mountains classification. But Belli, once again, looking for a race-winning situation. Look at this. Simoni's no teammates left now, Phil, so the best way to do it is to accelerate and get rid of as many passengers as possible.
Well, this is amazing, because he's come right to the front. He's got rid of his whole Seiko team. There's nobody here, and he's still got such a huge group as well. Scarponi's still here, Rumzas, George Tochnik. Off goes the helmet of Julio Perez. Popovic has climbed right back, and right behind Popovic is Garzelli.
A bit surprised at the attitude there of Gilberto Simoni. Admittedly, yes, he doesn't have any teammates left in the group, but he really should ride a little bit more defensively, especially when there are so many other riders in the group. Moving up there, you can just see this is Kim Kirchen once again. He's having a great ride here in the Giro d'Italia. He'll be trying to stay in contact as long as possible with his team leaders, men like Aitor Gonzalez and Dario Friga. But that acceleration, it really has put the cat amongst the pigeons.
He's got a split. The first time we've seen it, but every time Simoni does this, he always gets rid of somebody, and he's now got an interesting split. But the big boys don't seem to be having any trouble following the pace. This is Pelazzotti. Now, where is he? I think just off the back.
We'll get a chance if we can just swing forward. He is a man who was put into difficulty on the Zoncolan, but Gilberto Simoni got his usual shadow here with him, Phil, Stefano Garzelli, and this is amazing. I'm surprised that this acceleration here is doing so much damage to the group, because we have not really hit the very difficult part of the climb. The difference between Vladimir Belli, who's now decided to go it alone, and the group of Gilberto Simoni is just inside of 1 minute.
Now, as we look down the mountain, remember the majority of these riders still at the head of the race are in the original breakaway of 15, which has been thinning out dramatically over the last hour or so. That's Popovic giving us a smile. Here's Rumzas, and here comes Marco tagging on to the back, and that's becoming quite a select group at the front now. Freddie Gonzalez has been picked up too. Now, I'm not so sure he can hang on to the back of Marco Pantani. The King of the Mountains leader continues to do well. He's scored maximum points today on the 3 first category climbs, Freddie. But again, he's gone out on an attack. That's the way to stay consistent. Go out and get the points, and don't rely on the finish.
Pantani really suffering a lot today. There, look at that's a very strange pedaling action. You mentioned it a few days ago, Phil, and it really is rather bizarre the way he points his toes down at the bottom end of the circle, and I wonder why he does that. It really doesn't look very comfortable at all. We're inside now, 5 kilometers to go for the leader, Vladimir Belli. And still he's holding on to around about a 45-second advantage. But once Gilberto Simoni et al. Begin their acceleration, you can see that time gap is going to get wiped away pretty quickly.
7 men. Oh, and 3 more coming on, making 10 as they start now to continue their way through. The gap is closing all of the time. Clock running at the moment for Belli, and is this going to be an attack from Julio Perez? Popovic is feeling a bit twitchy. An acceleration by Popovic. Now there's a sign of confidence now. Jaroslav Popovic and Simoni there, anxious to get out of that little block of riders in, I think, to close down this gap. Now this is interesting. The Lambau Credi rider, who comes out from this team based in Holland at 5 kilometers to go, is becoming quite a star.
42 seconds. This really is a good move, and you just have to shudder when you look at his age, Phil. 23 years of age. He was a great revelation last year, but Simone said, that's enough, boys. You can have a little bit of a play if you like, but I'm number one. I'm the boss.
And look at that now. Well, Popovic got hit at the wrong time. That's why Simone may have gone. But there was no reaction. In fact, it's Popovic himself who's found the reaction and the strength. So take your hat off to him, because he's gone across that gap as quickly as he could, and he must. And nothing at all from Garzelli. He's had to stay there. Pantani and Julio Perez, nothing.
Well, there's Pantani at the back of the group. On the front end of the group, Eddie Mazzolini had actually made a comeback into this group, and he's now pacing Stefano Garzelli. There's Pantani recovering onto the wheel of Andrea Noe. Once again, Noe, he's always there. He never really does very much in the bike race, but he's always a man who it's very difficult to get rid of. This is a great move by Popovic there in second position. He's just joined Gilberto Simone, and Simone must be wondering, well, who is this guy? I know he finished 12th in the Giro last year, but he's only a kid.
He is indeed, but he was well known here as an amateur because he spent all of his time racing in Italy, and then he signed up with the team coming out of Holland. But of course they do ride on Colnago bicycles, and Ernesto Colnago has a lot of good things to say about Popovic, I can assure you of that.
There was Zabaya just on the right hand side. You get a chance to see the front end of this bike race right now as Gilberto Simone goes by with Jaroslav Popovic, and that would leave, I think by my calculations, just one man in front, and that would be Vladimir Belli. There's Francesco Casagrande and his teammate Raimundas Rumsas, Julio Perez there in the orange jersey, and Georg Tocznik in the white jersey of Gerolsteiner. He's actually doing a pretty good job, Phil, of moving himself quite high in the overall standings here.
He's riding a solid race, just a little bit into the second echelon. This man has been dictating the first here. Simone knows he's got to keep on getting time in these mountain stages. He's not the best time trialist in the world. 4 kilometers to go. I think this is the first time we've seen him actually grimace.
It's the first time he really has suffered. I think he was a bit surprised because when he went to the summit of the Zoncolan, I think he expected to get a much bigger time gap over men like Stefano Garzelli, and in the back of his mind, he must be slightly worried about the individual time trials to come. Let's not forget there are still 2 40-kilometer time trials to come before the end, and the first rendezvous is going to be tomorrow, and that's actually slightly longer at 42 kilometers. He needs to get time between himself and Stefano Garzelli because he realizes Garzelli is the superior individual time trialist.
Well, he's playing his cards exactly as he sees them right now. Popovic has caught him with a terrific show of determination. Doesn't even have any strength to give him a hand. But Simone is a climber who likes to dictate the pace. He doesn't seem to worry when riders sit behind him. And he just continues to climb. There's Belli, still up front, remember. We've caught Zabaya now. Massive crowd here as we head up into the Dolomites. Popular hunting ground for the Giro d'Italia, and this time he's detached Popovic. Another acceleration. This man is a pure climber when he can lift the pace like he does.
He's never happier than when the race is at the finish of a big mountain summit, and that's where he really has the chance to build on his overall lead. He consolidates on the mountaintop finishes and then defends in the other terrains. This is the Gruppo Garzelli, the group of Stefano Garzelli there on the front doing all of the pacemaking. Raimundas Rumsas just sitting there in that group as well. Francesco Casagrande, but I'm fairly certain quite shortly the man there wearing number 113 is going to have a bit of company, and the company will be wearing a pink jersey and a pink pair of shorts as well.
Perfect colour match now. Garzelli a little bit further down the slopes with Rumsas in tow. Garzelli again demonstrating he will not give up without a fight. Former winner of the race, and remember that year out, which might cost him yet, but in any case he's come into a major race with good form, and I'm absolutely astonished he can do this sort of performance having been out of competition for so long. But there is, it looks like they've completely blown this group apart now, and that's Casagrande there.
Well, Casagrande can't even stay on the wheel of Stefano Garzelli. Sitting right there, though, is Raimundas Rumsas on the wheel of Stefano Garzelli. He's forcing everybody else, and Garzelli is pulling himself up to Popovic there. Here's the lone leader right now, as we get the information. It's the Testa della Corsa. But this time, I think Gilberto Simone is riding like a man possessed. He wants to get big time gaps here this afternoon, Phil.
Well, he's just swept by Vladimiro Belli, put him away, and now going for another stage win, what would be his second stage win in the mountains here. And it looks like a perfect way now. He's going to gain more time, and again Garzelli is proving to be the number 2. Oh, no, he hasn't caught him. Here we go. We're about to pick up Belli. I thought we never saw the catch. And Belli knows he's coming.
It's confusing here in Italy, I have to tell you. The race referee is shouting and bawling over the radio, come on, get out of the way, clear the road, we want a clear race in front. And I wonder if Vladimir Belli's got anything in those legs to try and pick up the pace and stay with Gilberto Simoni. Further down, we're looking at the third man on the road, Vyacheslav Popovic. This bike rider really is fabulous at 23 years of age, and he's about to get picked up there by Stefano Garzelli. And Rumsas is actually turning out to be the leader of the Lampre squad here, Phil. He's riding an unbelievable race. He never does anything at all to help his team leader, Francesco Casagrande, and that's the real reason why he's in this bike race. But I think he's riding his own personal race here at the Giro.
I think he is. And he's a rider who always seems to ride in the shadow of someone else, because he was rather like Joop Zoetemelk used to do. He would finish second in the Tour de France. He only won it on one occasion because he never seems to attack, but has the ability to be with the riders who matter. And he's locked on to Garzelli at the moment. But it looks to me as though that little group behind is gradually hauling them back in. Marco Pantani not able to go with this second wave and has lost a little bit there. He keeps flexing his legs in very strange position. It really doesn't look at all comfortable on the bike. But now we're going back to the man who's got a great style going here now. And Gilberto Simoni enjoying another mountaintop. And it could be his second win of the Giro. And if he gets it, of course, he'll go further ahead. He'll be last to start tomorrow in the time trial to Bolzano. And he'll keep an eye on everybody in front of him. It'll be interesting to see if he concedes any time in that time trial tomorrow.
Popovic about to get caught here by Stefano Garzelli in the yellow jersey there, and Raimundus Rumsas, but Julio Perez is actually making a very nice comeback there as well, just a little bit further back. And in fact, Francesco Casagrande wasn't too far behind either, so 7 or 8 bike riders. Garzelli there digging so deep to bring himself up to the wheel of the man in front of him from the Landbau Credit team, and you can see how difficult this climb is. These riders getting out of the saddle on a number of occasions just to keep the tempo ticking over in those pedals of theirs. Garzelli, on the other hand, climbing most consistently, sitting down in the saddle. That indicates that he really has got quite a lot of force in those legs of his.
Well, they've caught Popovic now, and he's back into the slipstream of them, so there's only one rider up front, and that is the pink jersey. This is becoming to look a familiar tale now. And it's Garzelli fighting Simoni, and the other two just intruding slightly. Pantani this time I think has been beaten by the climb. He's been dropped here. That's Aitor Gonzalez who's now gone past him. He is certainly improving as this race goes on. This rider though is still clear of the field, but once again he is not winning the stage by minutes. I think it's only going to be by seconds.
Well, he's opening up the gap, and let's not forget Vladimir Belli is caught in the middle right now, and not too far behind him is one of his teammates, Raimundus Rumsas, who's riding alongside Stefano Garzelli. But this man has got the ability to pull it all back together. Julio Perez, he was a dominant factor in the past in the Giro d'Italia in the mountains, and right now he seems to be getting his mountain legs, because he's about to make contact with Stefano Garzelli and Popovic, and just in front there you can see Vladimir Belli. The man who really has lost out this afternoon is Pavel Tonkov. A big surprise to see that man here at a race like this, because I thought he was going to have one more good crack at the Giro d'Italia.
Well, Tonkov has been dropped, and they're saying, in fact, he's abandoned, but we've seen no pictures of it. Tonkov at the moment a long way behind.
A difficult day for him, and it's always a confusing day in the mountains. We sometimes have to wait many hours after the finish to get all of the information coming through, and every rider on a mountain stage like this has always got a story to tell at the dinner table in the evening. This man will have a story to tell tonight, the fact that he danced away from everybody in the Giro d'Italia once again to prove that he really is becoming very dominant in the mountaintop finishes. But the man that he cannot get rid of, Phil, is Stefano Garzelli.
Just look at him. This man doesn't know the word give up. And, you know, they're coming back one by one again. Popovic is actually on the defensive as well now, but he also refuses to give up as they continue now to pick off one another. Looks like Belli has come back to the fold now. Garzelli goes by him. Rumsas can hang on. Julio Perez. But in fact, Belli takes a look at them. I'm not sure he can do anything about it. Garzelli now is just trying to again limit his losses, because he can close the door again tomorrow in the time trial if he can recover. 20 seconds, it's not a big gap, is it?
It's not huge at all, and I'm really surprised at how much Gilberto Simoni is not opening the gaps up on these big mountain passes, because it's here where he's been so dominant in the past, but he's up against a pretty tough competitor who has got a point to prove at the Giro d'Italia this year, because let's not forget, when he was ejected from the race last year, he was actually wearing the leader's pink jersey, and he certainly wants to come back with a point to prove this year. He's a tough man, and to be 12 months out of competition, there's Belly just going off the back, to be 12 months out of competition, to come back in right at the top end of the sport is a very tall order for anybody. Andrea Noe keeping himself high in the overall classification there with Francesco Casagrande, who seems to be a bit on the limit when it comes to the mountain passes.
They've got to be a bit careful here. That rider there trying to push Simoni. That'll earn him a fine if he keeps that up. And Simoni very quick to say, no, don't touch me, because they will be very sharp on that, the referees, at the moment. This is Julio Perez. This is the best day for him too, and he's still able to give Garzelli a leg up. And Rumsas struggling, but holding on to that back wheel of Garzelli. Little bit of slight respite on the climb at the moment. Perez sacrificing a shot at the King of the Mountains again this year because he wanted a high overall position. He hasn't got that either. But he's having a good day today. But still, the pink jersey, riding where he loves to ride at the head of the race. He's won once in the pink jersey, and I think we're about to see him win twice.
We've just got to keep that tempo going right now and hope to survive. Look at the face there on Julio Perez. He's trying to pull himself back up because this is a good chance for him. We're still looking at only 20 seconds between Gilberto Simoni and Julio Perez and Stefano Garzelli, and they have finally cracked their shadow. Raimundos Rumsas, I think they're about to put him away.
Well, he's on the rivet. He's right on the edge of his effort, but he hasn't gone yet. I notice the Popovic seems to have disappeared there, which is a bit of a surprise, as we're getting up now towards flatter roads here and towards the finish itself at 1,400 kilometres, 1,400
kilometres to Milano, maybe, yeah.
That's probably about right, actually.
That really would have been a bit of a blow to the morale if it had said 1,400 kilometres. Around about, well, inside of 1 mile, there is the leader right now. You can just see Gilberto Simoni, and if you look at the pedaling speed that he's putting in right now, Phil, you get an idea of just how difficult this climb to Pampiaggio is turning out to be as well. But they haven't got rid of Rumsas. He's still there. He's still hanging on to the tail there of Stefano Garzelli. And I think it may well be Julio Perez is riding himself into a bit of form, although I don't know what he's doing.
Sat up. I think as you spoke then, he said that's it. And he went over to the right and moved off the line. And I think he's just going to survive to the finish. He's cracked Julio Perez.
That's amazing. I mean, he looked so comfortable. He looked as if he was flying along there. He was on the front of that group riding very nicely, and then all of a sudden, boom, and he's gone. Stefano Garzelli, anybody comes up and they ride and he just lets them carry on, and then all of a sudden he just gets on with the job in hand and controls himself, makes sure that he doesn't lose too much time to the superior climber Gilberto Simoni. In the back of his mind that he's thinking about the time trial. They're coming up to the final kilometre right now. Rumsas is still holding on, and he is sat on the wheel of Stefano Garzelli from the moment he took flight after Gilberto Simoni.
Well, this is going to be a most satisfying win for Simoni, but again he's going to look back and realise, I think, that he hasn't got the huge time gains that he expected. Even so, a win is a win and a gain is a gain. And you have to say that Garzelli has never asked for any assistance. And look at that, Perez sat up and he's come back.
Very strange. You can go through a bad patch like that and recover and pull yourself back into the bike race, especially if you're a climber, because a climber cannot really ride at a consistent pace on a climb like this. He needs to accelerate and decelerate, changing his rhythm all of the time, whereas Garzelli, 185 there, is riding basically on sheer power right now. He just keeps ticking over. He's probably using a slightly bigger gear than anybody else. You can see this man is really struggling today. Well, I say struggling, he's dominating the bike race, but he's really hurting himself, I should say, to try and get himself the win again in the pink jersey. But more importantly, he wants to put time between himself and this man before the individual time trial tomorrow.
Oh, well, he's really hurting Garzelli, this one. And there's Rumsas hanging on as well. This has been a dual battle between the chasers here, but this man, remember, disqualified last year when he was third overall in this race. He later won his appeal for drugs and was exonerated. But that didn't stop, of course, him being kicked off the race at the time and a chance of winning it then. He's making no mistake now. And this is the face of Francesco Casagrande. I'm not sure where he is on the field. on the climb, but he must be in the top 10, otherwise our cameras wouldn't have found him. And now it looks as though Simoni can prepare here to take his second stage win as leader of the Giro as he comes towards the top of this climb in the Dolomites.
The gap is not big. It's not very much more than about 250, 300 meters over Stefano Garzelli and Julio Perez. Still in contention there, Raimundus Rumsas, who has been sitting on the wheel of Garzelli all the time. Fabulous pair of wheels on Garzelli's bike there, very low profile, taking the risk of riding those in the big mountain passes like this because they are dangerous on the downhill sections of a course. But this is a battle between two men right now. Forget about everybody else. It's this man, Gilberto Simoni and Stefano Garzelli. This is going to be a race all the way to the finish in Milano.
Nearly 5 hours in the saddle today. It's been a pretty long ride for these riders through the mountains. Tomorrow they won't find it quite so tough as we head down to Bolzano in time trial formation. Not a lot of time to recover, is there, from these efforts today? Simoni desperate to take time here in the mountains. He expects to lose a little bit of time in the time trials. It's going to be tough. Garzelli is still showing tremendous defiance here. And Rumsas has done nothing but follow. He's obviously at the limit too. He's struggling as we get into the tunnel here now. Quite an interesting little picture that makes here. These are the riders in second and third place on the road.
Once again, Julio Perez has been dropped. That really is quite remarkable. He's on and off the group here like a yo-yo. But for the moment, we go back to the man who is going to get himself the second stage victory at the summit of a very difficult climb. And I wonder what he'll think about the time gaps that he's achieved. Because I think, Phil, he probably wanted to get slightly more time over Stefano Garzelli than that.
Gilberto Simoni won on the Monte Zoncolan, the steepest climb of the Tour. Now he's going to win here at the Alti Pampaggio. He'll make the most. A massive crowd who's travelled up to the summit here on what is a lovely day, and they're seeing the Maglia Rosa of the Giro d'Italia bring the riders home for the second time in this race. He's still completely committed here. He's fighting for seconds, and I think he's only going to get seconds. The clock will start just about now.
4 hours, 46 minutes and 42 seconds. That really hurt him. Look at the face on him there. The man just coming up alongside to catch him. As we see now Stefano Garzelli, and still sitting on his tail is Raimundus Rumsas. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Rumsas try and come by him here. And that's not a very gentlemanly thing to do.
No, well, I hope he doesn't. But, you know, there's no love lost here in the battle for high places. And in fact, Garzelli says, oh no you don't, I'm not making all the work for you to take the prize off me. And with that acceleration, he probably gets a 1 second time gap as well. Garzelli in, 35 seconds down, 36 we'll say for Rumsas. Julio Perez, and look at the late rush by Popovic. He fights all the way to the line, doesn't he? And he just loses it by a length on it. So Perez will get fifth, their fourth rather, Popovic fifth. And Andrea Noah, I think at 56 seconds has done enough, certainly, to hold on to third place overall. Casagrande not that far behind. He'll have come in seventh.
Well, he's fighting and battling, and this should be Eddie Mazzolini, who's done a lot of work for his own teammate, and this ride will keep Eddie well up in the top 10, possibly in the overall classification, because this overall classification is certainly going to get turned upside down tonight with this very dramatic ride by Gilberto Simoni. And let's not forget, Marco Pantani is still out on the course. I think he's done a great ride, Marco Pantani, and I think he's probably done enough, Phil, to keep himself in the top 10 as well.
Well, let's hope so. As he comes up, there's the man that started all the action yet again on the mountain, just comes home, Vladimir Belli. He'd be ninth. And still they come in one by one now. The clock continues to count, of course. Simoni is gained. Here comes Marco Pantani. Makes his way up to the line. Well, far from disgraced on this climb. He's been a challenge. Aitor Gonzalez. He might like the time trial tomorrow, but he certainly seems to be getting better and better here. And Pantani, just look at the crowd cheering over Marco, just on 2:03 when he crossed the line.
It's a good ride by Marco Pantani. It certainly does keep him pretty high up in the overall classification, but there is the time gains of Gilberto Simoni over the rest.
Interesting, aren't they? 35 seconds again. He's prized out of Garzelli, gets a 20-second win bonus as well, so he's picked up 55 seconds in real time, but Garzelli gets a second place, so it won't be quite that much. Anyway, the pink jersey stays very, very firmly on the shoulder of Gilberto Simoni. The time trial tomorrow he may not like, but when you've got the leader's jersey on, you can produce a good time trial. Godzelli is now out to 1 minute and 19 seconds. Noe does stay third, but Popovic has closed in on him there. Rumsas also there too. Completing the top 8 is Pelazzotti, and I can tell you that Marco Pantani is in 9th.